Tenés tu email proyectando, ¿eh?
Buenos días. Tras la verificación del
Yeah, thank you. After verifying quorum, call to order this regular session of the Permanent Council. To start our work, and under Article 43, colleagues, could you please take your seats? We do have a quorum. There are many still in the room, but they're not sitting yet. To start our work, and under 43 of the Rules of Procedure, I put to your consideration the draft order of business contained in document CPOD 2595/26. As I see no objections, we shall approve it. It is so approved. Before continue, on behalf of the Chair of the Permanent Council, we would like to most warmly welcome and congratulate the people and government of Argentina for the commemoration of the May Revolution and the first government. And we also extend congratulations to the people and government of Guyana for their National Day, celebrated on the 26th of May. We'd also like to extend our commendations to both sister nations for these important historical dates and significant for both their identity and the development of their peoples. Given that we once again have a very busy agenda, we will have a break at 1 p.m. and we will resume punctually at 2:30 p.m. I would also request cooperation from all delegations and from the panelists to kindly keep to the time allotted as per the rules of procedure in order to finish in a timely manner and for the orderly continuation of this session.
y no tener que hacer
The chair very much hopes that I won't have to change the time allotted to everyone to speak, and that we're able to move as promptly and efficiently as we can and give everyone an opportunity to be heard. Next, let me point out that as you see in F of Article 8 of the regulations, 8F, I am very pleased to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Marlo Mohamed Hassim as permanent representative of Suriname before the OAS, who has presented his credentials to the Secretary General just May 26th, the other day. Ambassador Mohamed Hassim is a very recognized and respected foreign servant of his nation. His very solid experience in diplomacy, having represented his country with distinction at the Federal Republic of Brazil for over a decade, or nearly a decade, I should say, is a testament to his profound commitment to bilateral affairs, regional affairs, and mutual understanding in the hemisphere. That being the case, his previous position in the high levels of the Surinamese government, particularly as linked to strategic policies and development, will no doubt very much enrich our own debates at a time, as we know, that our hemisphere is going through challenging times. So, Ambassador Hamid Massim, as we receive you and welcome you in this Permanent Council, please know how pleased we are to have you with us, and we wish you every success. Suriname is a bridge of diversity and connection between the Caribbean and the rest of the hemisphere, north and south, central and south, and has often, always echoed the basic values that we cherish here. Therefore, we are absolutely certain that your contribution to multilateralism, cooperation, and political consultation will be excellent. You are most welcome, sir, and it is my great pleasure to offer you the floor to address us for the very first time for 7 minutes and 30 seconds. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, allow me to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation for your very generous words of welcome, your warm welcome, and your gracious introduction. I would like to express my appreciation to all fellow permanent representatives and alternative representatives present for welcoming me and for the courtesies extended upon assuming my duties. Grateful for the kindness, collegiality, and spirit of cooperation that I've encountered, and I look forward to working closely with all delegations and advancing our collective objectives. As this is my first participation in the Permanent Council, I wish to extend my greetings to Secretary General Albert Ramdin and the Assistant Secretary General Laura Gill and members of the General Secretariat. It is both a privilege and a pleasure to join this distinguished council, which for decades has served as the principal political forum of our hemisphere and as a cornerstone of inter-American collaboration. The enduring strength of the inter-American system has never been found in the absence of differences among its member states. Rather, it has resided in our collective commitment to manage those differences through dialogue, mutual respect, and fidelity to the principles and values enshrined in the charter of our organization. The Permanent Council serves as a vital forum for such engagement, fostering understanding, building confidence, and facilitating the search for common ground. As one of the principal political organs of the organization, the Permanent Council occupies a central place in the inter-American system through its deliberations, consultations, and oversight responsibilities. It helps to promote consensus and preserve the spirit of solidarity. At a time when our region faces an array of political, economic, social, security, and environmental challenges, the Council's role as a platform for constructive dialogue and collective action is more relevant than ever. Suriname comes to this Council with a spirit of openness and commitment. We look forward to working with all member states in promoting our common purposes and strengthening the effectiveness, relevance, and responsiveness of this organization. As I begin my participation in the work of this Council, I look forward to learning from the wealth of experience represented around this table and to contributing in however modest a way to the important mission entrusted to this institution. While I'm still becoming fully acquainted with the broad range of issues that engage the attention of this Council, I look forward to learning from colleagues, deepening my understanding of these matters, and contributing constructively to our shared endeavors. My delegation stands ready to engage, collaborate, and contribute in a spirit of partnership and good faith to the important work that lies ahead. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Muchísimas gracias a usted, señor.
Thank you very much indeed. Ambassador, let me reiterate how warmly we welcome you and are pleased to have you among us. Wish you every success. I do want to state that this welcome is representative of everyone here, sir. So you may be certain that the welcome is general, and we wish you every success among us. Pleased to have you. Moving along and picking up our next item on the agenda, let us turn now to the 2025 annual report of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, to the 56th regular session of the General Assembly. This document has been distributed. It is CP Doc 6176/26. To address this item, it is my pleasure, on behalf of the Permanent Council and my own, to extend the warmest welcome to Dr. Jarbas Barbosa, PAHO Director, who is with us and honors us in this room. And it is he, of course, that will present the annual report of the organization that he heads. And that is, you may know, the oldest health organization in the world. So it is a genuine honor and pleasure to have you with us. The historic collaboration between the OAS and PAHO is essential to the resilience and welfare of all of our peoples. The lessons learned and the advance progress that has been noted in this annual report speaks for itself. The right to health in a hemisphere that is ever a challenge. I am very pleased, having witnessed just yesterday, as a matter of fact, to see the signature between PAHO and the Secretary General of the OAS, represented by Secretary Ramdin, for access to the OAS Administrative Tribunal for certain of the members of the personnel in the PAHO roster. This says pretty much all you need to know about how much we support each other and how transparency, legal certainty are buttressed by this to everyone's benefit. We are quite sure that those links of collaboration will get stronger and stronger, as they really are the hallmark of the Inter-American system as a whole. So thank you so much for your support to the many activities that OAS heads, and without further ado, I am very pleased to offer the floor now to Dr. Jarbas Barbosa, PAHO Director. You have 7 minutes, sir.
Council and Permanent Representative of Costa Rica, Ambassador Alejandra Solano, Secretary General Albert Brandin, Assistant Secretary General Laura Gil, Permanent Representatives, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to present the 25th Annual Report of the Pan-American Health Organization, PAHO, Driving Innovation, Delivering Impact. The report reflects how the countries of the Americas continue to advance health through solidarity, innovation, and collective action. In 2025, the Americas continue to lead the world in disease elimination. Suriname became the first country in the Amazon basin to be certified malaria-free, bringing to 20 the number of malaria-free countries in our region. Brazil also achieved the elimination of mother-to-child transmission of HIV. At the same time, our region faced an important setback. In November, the region of the Americas lost its measles elimination status following the reestablishment of endemic transmission. PAHO is working closely with our member states to strengthen surveillance, trace transmission chains, and accelerate immunization efforts with a firm commitment to restoring the region's measles-free status. Primary health care remains at the center of PAHO's efforts to transform health systems and expand the equitable access to services. Through the Alliance for Primary Health Care in the Americas, led jointly by PAHO, the World Bank, and the Inter-American Development Bank, nearly $1 billion has been mobilized to strengthen first-level care. In 2025, Chile, Paraguay, and Panama joined the Alliance, bringing total membership to 5 countries. A total of 10 countries has joined this initiative as of today. Hearts in the Americas initiative now operates in more than 10,000 primary health care centers across 28 countries. More than 6 million people are receiving standardized hypertension treatment and care. Where Hearts has been fully implemented, 6 out of 10 patients achieve blood pressure control, nearly double the region average. Protecting these gains requires strong preparedness and rapid response capacities. In 2025, PAHO's regional surveillance system verified more than 2.1 million alerts and detected 157 public health events. PAHO responded to over 38 public health emergencies, including outbreaks of dengue fever, mpox, and measles, as well as the impact of Hurricane Melissa. In Haiti, PAHO supported 59 health facilities, strengthened cholera control, and helped sustain essential health services under extraordinary difficult conditions. This work advanced in coordination with the OAS Haiti Roadmap, aligning with broader efforts related to security, governance, and humanitarian response. Across the Caribbean, PAHO deployed 16 emergency medical teams and delivered more than 23 tons of emergency supplies to support Jamaica, Haiti, and Cuba during the Hurricane Melissa. The inauguration of the new Emergency Operations Center in Barbados marked an important transition from response to readiness. Allow me now to continue in Spanish. Em 2025, através
In 2025, through the regional rotation fora of the OAS, we were able to tap many sums of inputs. We collected more than 250 million vaccination doses, and had the means to cover costs, to cover rare diseases and cancer, and now have enabled countries to save a very great deal themselves. In Argentina, the government, under Synergium Biotech, Pfizer, and the OPS, signed an agreement for anti-pneumococcal vaccine. This is now accessible on very concessional grounds to the regional countries as a whole, and the manufacture in very equitable access. The transformation has gone very much from strength to strength. The Pan-American Road to Health and Digital Health encompasses 20 countries that have increased their interoperability, their telehealth, and responsible integration of artificial intelligence to be sure that the services are available. This has made such a difference since drones are available to bring medication even to the most remote zones in Panama. And this, along with artificial intelligence, is another reason why tuberculosis has certainly been better attended in the penitentiary centers in Paraguay. Let me also say that for the biennium 2026-2027, we have managed to increase the efficiency in an era of great uncertainty. The PAHO is now increasing and modernizing its operation, strengthened transparency and accountability over 2025. $7 million have been saved over that time. Those achievements also reflect the capacity of PAHO to build alliances and work with the development banks in the area and with private sector, civil society, various different particular and very valued partners such as Canada and Haiti to ensure that health remains a strategic investment for development, stability, and prosperity for the Americas as a whole. PAHO is doing much more than it used to, with greater efficiency day by day, with concrete results that are beneficial to the countries. Ladies and gentlemen, in the framework of this last organization and General Assembly of the OAS, coordination with PAHO was tightened. We are very honored by that trust and are working very hard on making that priority a reality throughout the hemisphere from north to south. We also have technical support that is available through all of the labs in the area, working to ensure that our General Assembly and contributions are ever stronger throughout the hemisphere from north to south. The Inter-American System of Health is going to be I'm so sorry, Doctor. Could you turn your mic on again and be so kind as to wrap up with the greatest respect? We will remain the specialized agency for health in the Americas and will work hand in hand with the member states to build stronger collaboration and sustainable measures for the Americas, because when we work together in health, we protect lives, we strengthen institutions, and build ever more resilient and prosperous countries for our region. The Americas will continue to be a region that cares, that innovates, and that will remain united. Thank you very much. Merci. Thank you. Obrigado. Thank you very much, Dr. Barbosa, for your presentation. I'm now pleased to give the floor to states as they may wish to intervene. Thank you. Colombia thanks Dr. Barbosa, who is head of the PAHO, for his report on 2025 and the great strides that the organization has continued making to strengthen health and well-being in the Americas. My country particularly values the advances that have been found in the health systems, ever more inclusive and with more attention for primary health, a reduction of communicable diseases, a reduction of maternal health, and better availability of vaccines and the capacity to respond to emergencies as they arise. Colombia and PAHO have remained very closely allied in trying to meet these priorities. In November of 2025, the Colombian government, together with PAHO, worked on the 2025-2027 programmatic framework, which will ensure that international cooperation in health will grow and become even tighter over the next 3 years. Primary health, we know, is the absolute root of systems that need to be ever more integrated and focused on the clients themselves, the patients, particularly as we have been focusing on communicable disease from now to the end of the decade, and paying particular attention to epidemiological surveillance and a better understanding of health determinants in the region, in each of the regions, as we have been working on the 4 major planks of elimination of disease as per PAHO. Regional cooperation in this area is absolutely key, very strategic for every one of our health systems, aiming to be more resilient and more effective. Colombia has done its part in paying attention to the RDA Summary of Health, a document that has shown how the electronic history of people's health can better be tracked. Madam Chair, Colombia recognizes equally that we have to keep working hard on our capacity to respond to challenges that are ever more sensitive as they affect public health. Aware of this, just this year, we adopted the plan for 2026 and to 2035 for a strategic plan in health over that period. We very much thank Dr. Barbosa and PAHO for all it does and ensures and can assure the representative of Colombia's full attention such that this hemisphere is ever more prepared to face the challenges of tomorrow. Thank you very much. Costa Rica is recognized. Thank you, Madam Chair, and a very warm good morning to everyone. Costa Rica appreciates the contribution of Dr. Barbosa, the head of the Pan American Health Organization, the director, and thanks PAHO particularly for its support at a very sensitive time and difficult, complex time for our entire region. We have climatic challenges, we have structural difficulties, and every now and then bursts of this or that disease. So a comprehensive understanding of public health is key, not only as it involves responding to emergencies, though certainly that is important, but also to ensure that primary health care from the earliest time goes hand in hand with what the region is doing. Costa Rica is most especially grateful for the help that is being afforded in the area of mental health and human rights. Also, emotional issues that are derived from the pandemic, and questions of disability and inequality as a result of the pandemic. We understand that as we move forward, it is essential we do more to strengthen our health systems and be sure that we have a comprehensive care system to give. The technical assistance that PAHO has always offered is most especially welcome, as it has helped us to frame our public policy and to do more and better as we move forward in a preventive nature to help individuals, whatever their situation may be. Let me also say that Costa Rica appreciates the report not only as a beneficiary of all of the help in this region, but also as it stands for consolidated capacity as we have been building it over the years. Institutional response and plans. We consider particularly significant the support that has been given us, and Costa Rica being the first country to work with PAHO as we attend to health emergencies with our emergency medical teams in a manner that strengthens our response capacity and our assistance to the overall international support in health. Likewise, we recognize the strategic value of initiatives through this hemisphere, as we have, for instance, in the example of digital health, so that our health systems are ever more inclusive and resilient. Finally, let me end by saying that Costa Rica very much supports and applauds the work of PAHO in this area and very much appreciates especially the technical assistance that is offering. The strengthening of our bilateralism, the solidarity that allows each of us to have health systems that are ever more present and useful as we face the challenges ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Ambassador Savage from Canada. Thank you, Madam Chair. Canada would like to thank Dr. Barbosa for presenting the annual report. It's a very complete report, and we'd like to congratulate the Pan American Health Organization for its leadership, ongoing leadership in promoting health care and health security throughout the Americas. We commend the organization for its achievements over the last year. Specifically, we commend its support for member states in strengthening resilient healthcare systems, attending emergencies, and efforts to eliminate disease. Canada favorably welcomes the emphasis placed on transparency and accountability by the PAHO. This specifically applies to the PAHO Forward initiative. It contributes to effective technical cooperation and measurable results. We also commend the strategic priorities of the organization, specifically efforts geared to strengthening primary care, expanding access to primary health care and vaccinations, and the digital transformation of healthcare in the region. These efforts are vital in order to reduce persistent inequalities in the area of healthcare and to improve access to quality care.
We applaud PAHO's leadership in advancing regional cooperation and partnership, including with international financial institutions, donors, and other stakeholders, to mobilize resources and drive innovation in health systems and service delivery. Canada is proud to support PAHO's critical work through our programming that enables much of the organization's technical cooperation and regional initiatives. Finally, we recognize PAHO's critical role in supporting member states in preparing for and responding to current and future health emergencies, and advancing a strong, more resilient and equitable health system across the hemisphere. Canada remains a strong partner to PAHO and looks forward to continuing our collaboration in advancing shared priorities for health in the Americas. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. Y ahora le damos la...
And now I give the floor to Panama. Thank you, Madam Chair. The delegation of Panama wishes to thank Dr. Barbosa for presenting the 2025 annual report for the Pan American Health Organization. We'd also like to acknowledge leadership of the PAHO and providing health care and healthcare security throughout the Americas. 2025 was an important year of challenges, but also significant progress made in the region. Panama especially values efforts of the organization to strengthen preparation and response to healthcare emergencies, to promote more resilient healthcare systems, and to promote regional cooperation to face increasingly complex challenges. We'd like to highlight some of the challenges in the area of healthcare. This would include support provided to member states with epidemic outbreaks and other public health emergencies. Panama would also like to recognize the work done by the organization in priority areas for our region. These would include primary health care, digital transformation of healthcare systems, elimination of transmissible diseases, reducing maternal mortality, and strengthening human resources for healthcare. These initiatives contribute directly to promoting the well-being of our people and the empowerment of sustainable development. Specifically, we'd like to thank the organization for the technical support in a number of different national initiatives. We value, amongst other efforts, support for implementation of the national strategy to ramp up the fight against cervical uterine cancer in epidemiological studies and international classification of our medical emergency team, achievements all of which contribute to improving our healthcare system and making it more robust. We also appreciate the work of PAHO in Haiti, where they continue to provide vital support in particularly difficult circumstances. Our delegation believes that strengthening healthcare response systems in Haiti is fundamental to the efforts put forth by the OAS and to provide stability and well-being for its people. We would also reiterate our support to the work of the organization, and we would convey our gratitude, Dr. Barbosa, and the entire PAHO team for their dedication and commitment to the health of peoples in the Americas. Thank you. Thank you, says the chair. I now give the floor to Ambassador Bailey of Brazil. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank the director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Jarbas Barbosa, for presenting the annual report and for the excellent work undertaken by him and his entire team throughout the year. In the report, we note with satisfaction progress achieved in areas such as the initiative to eliminate disease, the initiative to improve attention for non-transmissible disease, the partnership for primary health care in the Americas, the campaign of zero maternal deaths, and the Pan American Highway for Digital Health. We take this opportunity to reiterate Brazil's support for the primary health care partnership in the Americas and the policy to expand equitable access to technology in healthcare and reduce the costs, both initiatives which are key for our national systems. With regard to the management of PAHO, we would commend the transparency and openness with which the stewardship of the organization was carried out by them, and support for the member states in financial challenges underway. We recognize the important efforts undertaken to streamline and prioritize programs in implementing the budget for 2026-2027. Madam Chair, in his statement during the 62nd Directing Council meeting of PAHO, the Minister of Brazil's Minister of Health, Dr. Padilha, reaffirmed the Brazilian commitment to the organization and our intention to expand participation in the Rotary and strategic funds to guarantee products that are more accessible to the Brazilian people, but also to reduce costs for all of the Americas. And I would emphasize our determination to continue taking action for regional development to produce vaccines and medications in all platforms in cooperation with the institutions and businesses of the Americas and throughout the world. Brazil renews here its commitment to improved healthcare governance throughout the world, based on multilateralism, international cooperation, solidarity amongst nations, promotion of the principles of equity, transparency, and respect of national sovereignty. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Bedio. I now give the floor to Ambassador Encinas from Mexico. Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, one and all. The delegation of Mexico would like to thank Dr. Barbosa for the presentation of the report of 2025 for PAHO and recognize his efforts at the helm of a vital institution, key for public health care in our hemisphere. The report confirms Mexico's deep conviction. Health care is not a privilege, nor is it a good. It is a human right. It's a public responsibility, and it's a key condition for social equity and the well-being of our peoples. Mexico recognizes in the work of PAHO efforts to improve healthcare, reduce gaps, and to support states through technical cooperation, which is substantive, and which supports the priorities of each company. In a region that's marked by inequality, healthcare cooperation needs to translate into more sound public policy, coordinated regional efforts, and preventative healthcare, which is timely and dignified for those who need it. Here we recognize the project of transformation carried out by the government of Mexico to provide universal health care, which is preventative, free of charge, community-based, strengthening healthcare services, reflects a political decision to provide medication, care, in dignity throughout the territories, and especially for those that most need it. Mexico supports the leadership of the PAHO in the initiative Zero Maternal Deaths, which would be preventable. This is based on equality, social justice, and rights. For Mexico, this is not a secondary issue. Rather, it's a key dimension in public healthcare systems which are universal and free of discrimination, that would protect life and dignity of women, adolescents, and girls, to prevent avoidable death, and to close historical gaps in access. We support PAHO's efforts to strengthen its accountability, transparency, and responsibility. It's a strong organization, and one that is strong can use its resources for substantive issue, avoid red tape, and provide clear support for its member states. We reiterate Mexico's support to PAHO and for its mandates. The area of healthcare should be a tool for justice, solidarity, and well-being, but also the basis for collective well-being. The pandemic taught us a clear lesson. No country can save itself on its own. Each people's efforts, health depends on the region's capacity to prevent, detect, and respond in a united fashion to such emergencies. Mexico will continue working in a pro-positive and constructive manner with PAHO to drive forward a healthcare agenda which would strengthen universal systems which are preventative, community-based, and resilient, with life, dignity, and the well-being of people at its heart. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. I now give the floor to El Salvador, Ambassador Acevedo. Thank you, Chair. El Salvador would like to thank Dr. Barbosa at the helm of the PAHO for presenting the annual report on 2025. It objectively reflects both achievements and pending challenges in the area of healthcare in the Americas. El Salvador values the efforts of the organization for its efficiency, established partnerships, and streamlined resources based on hemispheric priorities and the mandates of the organization. We benefit from substantive technical support and cooperation from PAHO to strengthen our healthcare systems. And this has led to significant institutional progress, by which we created a new national authority. It also consolidates the country's ability to provide security, effectiveness of medications, and healthcare technologies for the people. Also, we recognize the support received in the area of non-transmissible diseases and primary health care and clinics for preventing and working with diabetes in order to reduce morbidity and mortality throughout the region. These instruments contribute specifically to provide timely care and to improve the quality of life of our people. It's also important to note the support provided by the Partnership for Primary Healthcare in the Americas, provided by PAHO, IDB, and the Americas to promote innovation and policies that would strengthen primary healthcare as a main pillar of more resilient and sustainable healthcare systems. We also appreciate the support for our own digital architecture, one after one, which provides primary healthcare, education, and which provides enjoys technical support from PAHO. El Salvador has thus strengthened its operational systems through training and working together on emergency response systems. We also appreciate the updating of national plans for healthcare in keeping with the best practices internationally and standards. All of this is vital in a regional context marked by recurring complex emergencies. We would highlight the efforts undertaken in managing medical waste, establishing healthcare systems, and technical support, which helps to strengthen the environmental and healthcare system and to reduce the environmental impact of healthcare systems. In the area of road safety, El Salvador enjoyed support from initiatives that helped us improve our immediate response given traffic conditions and to reduce avoidable disease deaths associated with accidents. We would also support the virtual system for public health and the technical support to strengthen training for public health care staff throughout the country. We also reiterate our call to continue expanding these platforms, especially in areas such as mental health, research, and response to non-transmittable diseases based on the standards that were set in this area. We reaffirm our commitment to the principles of cooperation, solidarity at a regional level, and universal access to healthcare, and we ratified our willingness to work in a coordinated manner with PAHO and other member states to work towards a more healthy, equitable, and resilient region. Thank you. Thank you. I now give the floor to the Ambassador Coronado of Peru. Thank you. Peru appreciates the presentation of the annual report from the Pan American Health Organization, and we'd like to convey our gratitude to Dr. Barroso for his leadership at the helm of the organization. 2025 was particularly demanding for public health regionally. Our region has had to deal with epidemiological outbreaks, persistent problems in the area of immunization, transmittable disease, mental health, and strengthening of healthcare systems, etc. In this context, Peru particularly values the role of PAHO as a specialized agency in the inter-American system to support member states through timely cooperation, which is evidence-based and which is working towards concrete results. We'd also like to highlight the importance of the national offices in our countries. This makes it possible to more efficiently support the relationship between PAHO and each of our country in our capital cities. In the case of my country, I'd like to highlight the progress made in technical cooperation with PAHO, which was reflected in the report, such as dealing with healthcare emergencies, epidemiological surveillance, primary healthcare, preventing non-transmittable disease, maternal health, immunization, and improving finance for healthcare. We would also like to express our high appreciation for the cooperation with PAHO in 2025 to 2030, a plan which makes it possible to more closely align technical cooperation with the organization with our national healthcare priorities. For our country, this strategy is a vital tool to work towards a more resilient, equitable healthcare agenda which is focused on people. We'd also like to promote and highlight the recent signing in Geneva with the WHO agreement between PAHO and Peru to set up a primary healthcare roundtable in our country. This will make it possible to coordinate action between PAHO and Peru to provide basic attention in order to create a more inclusive and resilient system. Peru reaffirms its full commitment to multilateralism and regional health And in that spirit, we promote responsibility and activities in the area of PAHO's activities. Here we recognize the efforts of the organization, which will be celebrating its meeting in June of next, with the Vice Minister of Healthcare attending. Our country will also be honored to play the role of rapporteur, a responsibility which we assume with a full sense of institutional commitment. Also, Peru is involved in the awarding of a prize for 2026 for healthcare. I would like to highlight the efforts in the area of healthcare in our region and mutual learning and exchanges of views between our countries. And here, I would like to note with special satisfaction that the WHO prize was awarded to a citizen of my country for her leadership and work to strengthen mental health, including community mental health centers. This recognition is also motivation to continue to promote public policy to comprehensively respond to the needs of our peoples. Finally, Peru believes that it's vital for member states to maintain a responsible, sustained, and predictable commitment to PAHO. That would include timely compliance with our obligations. Only a financially sound organization can continue implementing its programs, providing quality technical support, and responding effectively to the healthcare needs of our region. Thank you. Thank you. I now give the floor to Ecuador. Thank you, Chair. The Republic of Ecuador would like to express its appreciation for the presentation of PAHO's annual report, which clearly reflects the technical support provided by PAHO in a number of strategic areas for our country and other countries. During the period of 2025, Ecuador was able to strengthen its response to emergencies through training, working together with emergency response systems that are more agile, and participation in regional initiatives geared to improving operational preparedness and response to healthcare emergencies. In this regard, we value the support provided by the regional rotation funds and the World Platform for Access to Medications to Combat Child Cancer. In this regard, Ecuador was one of the first countries in the region to receive vital medications for children suffering from cancer. We also recognize the organization's support in areas such as road safety, environmental safety, a gender-based focus and ethnic-based focus on healthcare, strengthening human resources for healthcare, and regional cooperation in the area of transplants. We also value the inclusion of Ecuador in the regional movement of cities and communities that are healthier through the launching of the Network for Healthy Municipalities, an initiative which promotes healthcare from the territories. Madam Chair, in the regional context in which we live, which is marked by increasingly complex challenges for health in our countries, the principle of solidarity, cooperation, and multilateralism, which guide the work of PAHO, go hand in hand with our country's commitment. And this is more important than ever to continue strengthening public healthcare systems in the Americas. And that would include action in various areas such as mental health. We would like to sincerely thank Dr. Barbosa and all of his team, and we hope that working with Ecuador will continue making progress, strengthening the value of multilateralism when it is put to the service of the well-being of our people. Thank you. Thank you. I now give the floor to the Ambassador Mohammed of Suriname.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My delegation thanks Dr. Chavez Barbosa for his comprehensive presentation and commends the Pan American Health Organization for its steadfast leadership and technical cooperation in support of the health and well-being of the peoples of the Americas. The 2025 annual report demonstrates the tangible impact of regional solidarity and collective action. My delegation notes in particular the progress achieved in health security, disease elimination, primary health care, digital health, and emergency preparedness. We also recognize PAHO's continued support to member states in responding to public health emergencies, strengthening surveillance systems, and expanding access to essential medicines, vaccines, and health technologies. Suriname is especially encouraged by the advances reported under the Disease Elimination Initiative. In this regard, my delegation is proud that Suriname became the first country in the Amazon region to be certified malaria-free, an achievement made possible through sustained national efforts and close cooperation with PAHO and other partners. This milestone demonstrates what can be achieved through long-term commitment, evidence-based policies, and regional cooperation. Madam Chair, the report also rightly underscores the importance of strengthening primary health care, addressing non-communicable diseases, expanding digital health solutions, and investing in the health workforce. These priorities are particularly relevant for small developing states, which continue to face challenges related to geographic dispersion, resource constraints, and increasing demands on national health systems. My delegation further notes PAHO's efforts to modernize its operations, mobilize resources, and strengthen partnerships in support of member states. At a time when health systems continue to confront complex and evolving challenges, the role of PAHO as a trusted technical partner and a platform for regional cooperation remains indispensable. In closing, Madam Chair, Suriname reaffirms its support for the organization's work and look forward to continuing our collaboration in advancing resilient and people-centered health systems throughout the hemisphere. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Muchas gracias, embajador. Ahora tiene...
Thank you, Ambassador. I now give the floor to Bolivia. Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to thank Director Barbosa for the report 2025. We agree fully with the vision that regional healthcare systems need to be built based on primary health care as a foundation. This should be in conjunction with local territories and cities where people live, work, and deal with their daily realities. Looking to the future also means shared responsibility and early warning systems. The measles outbreak in 10 countries in our region, including Bolivia, after having been a region free of this endemic disease, is an alarm that we cannot ignore. Decreasing systematic immunization rates means that we need to modernize management, fight disinformation with evidence-based information, and with financial support for our vaccination programs at the national and community levels. Therefore, we highlight the importance of the rotation fund. From our point of view of management, transforming public health inevitably involves two pillars: financial sustainability and digital transformation. We appreciate the methodology and the public finance management tools that were applied in the region to identify bottlenecks in terms of public healthcare systems. A fragmented and inefficient healthcare system punishes our people, those that are most vulnerable especially. Here, we need to invest in a way that's transparent in vital medication, modern equipment, and hospital centers that are truly resilient. Also, Bolivia supports enthusiastically the Pan-American Highway for digital transformation. We firmly believe that connectivity, telemedicine, and streamlining processes through technology are ways to make access to public health care more democratic. We cannot ignore the cultural differences and the difficulties for our peoples if we don't connect with the most remote of our peoples through digital transformation. Universal coverage in the Americas requires less rhetoric and more efficient management, more transparent data, more intersectoral coordination, and a deep-seated respect for our local realities. And this is why we appreciate the work of Dr. Barbosa and his team. Bolivia ratifies its commitment to continue working with PAHO and with each and every member state in order to drive transparent, digital, and financially responsible and profoundly human healthcare systems. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Bolivia.
Thank you, Bolivia. I now give the floor to Ambassador of Argentina. Thank you, Madam Chair, dear colleagues, distinguished Secretary General, distinguished Assistant Secretary General. For me, it's a pleasure to see Dr. Barbosa here at the OAS, and I acknowledge his leadership and the enormous commitment of his entire team to benefit inter-American health. If I may, I will be brief, but I'd just like to reference a couple of issues which I think are important. First, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that PAHO, even in a context of budgetary restrictions and austerity measures internally, despite this, it has managed to preserve its capacity for technical cooperation and to maintain its focus on the concrete impact of its work on countries. We would highlight that this combination of administrative caution and operational continuity strengthens our confidence in the organization. We would also recognize here the efforts of the PAHO to strengthen access to vaccinations at the regional level. That then makes it possible for our countries to have access to these vaccinations at more affordable prices. In that context, we would highlight the agreement between the PAHO and the Argentine government, Pfizer and Biotech Synergium, to promote local production of the vaccines in Argentina, to provide regional access through the rotation fund of the Pan American Health Organization. I'd like to most especially recognize the work of the Pan American Health Organization in Haiti, supporting healthcare authorities and the Haitian people, including epidemiological surveillance, the response to cholera, essential services, medical supplies, and care for displaced persons. This work is particularly worthwhile in the context of the roadmap for peace and stability in Haiti, which is coordinated by the OAS, where the healthcare dimension needs to be a central part of any comprehensive systemic response. If I may, I'd also like to put forth a suggestion with regard to the importance of broadening access. And here I know that PAHO is thinking about this agenda. We have raised this issue in bilateral meetings, and that is broadening access to radiotherapy, nuclear medicine, diagnosis through X-rays and radiology, especially to deal with non-communicable diseases and cancer. There is leeway here to deepen regional cooperation, to train professionals, to guarantee quality, physical and medical quality, radio protection, and preparation for radiological or nuclear emergencies. I'd like to conclude by saying that for Argentina, healthcare needs to continue to be a major pillar with emphasis on equitable access to medical technology, strengthening national capacity, and coordination amongst the various bodies of the inter-American system. In that regard, it is important to have a strong PAHO, which is technically sound and which is present on the ground. Thank you, Chair.
Usted ahora tiene la palabra.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Fiorentin of Uruguay is recognized. A very good morning, and a very good morning especially to Dr. Barbosa of PAHO. We're very pleased to have you among us. Let me step aside from protocol and to greet the representative of the Lycée Français who is here, and I'm sure you will, this is a good harbinger of things to come. Welcome, the speaker says in French. A very warm welcome, too, to Dr. Jarbas Barbosa for his presentation of the 2025 annual report of the Pan American Health Organization and his description of the health challenges in the region. This report does a very good job of summing up the situation as regards health, the potential for emergencies, the ample access to vaccinations and digital assistance, and the consolidation of primary health to make it more resilient and more patient-oriented. We particularly appreciate the support of PAHO to our country in a number of different areas that the report highlights. Amongst these, there is the technical support for the National Plan for Response to Disaster Management and Health Challenges, the coordination and preparation vis-à-vis health emergencies, and national plans for vaccination, as well as the action we need to take to continue working against tuberculosis and non-communicable diseases from day one. So we deeply appreciate the role of PAHO throughout the hemisphere and the generation of more and more proof and evidence on which we can continue to march towards ever more solid health systems of our own. We reiterate our commitment here to keep working hand in hand with PAHO to the benefit of the health in the hemisphere and indeed among our own people. Thank you very much, Ambassador. And says the chair, we also very much welcome the representatives of the Lycée Français, the students in the room that represent their school. Thank you. Uruguay, Madam Chair, would like also to extend its thanks to Javas Barbosa for his stellar leadership at a time that has been a organization. We are also very grateful for the ongoing cooperation throughout the hemisphere, yet again, as regards health emergencies, particularly as regards non-communicable diseases, and the resilience and transformation that is so necessary in all of our health systems, such that they are ever more available to everyone. Our thanks also to PAHO for the recognition that WHO and PAHO jointly have given us, and particularly in Dr. Cristina Lupa, for what we have done to fight tobacco. Uruguay just received a world prize under the aegis of living tobacco-free, and this is something that is now understood that we can offer the rest of the world as an example to follow. We're very pleased that our ex-president Tabaré Vascos has been working on this from 2008, hand in hand with PAHO. That's how we've gotten here. And we are, as I say, deeply grateful to PAHO's work in every area that speaks to resilience and the tremendous challenges that we face in the hemisphere as health is concerned. We work to better coordinate health in the Americas, and we welcome his presence here today. Thank you very much. Ambassador Pierre of Haiti is recognized. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Distinguished Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, dear friends, dear colleagues, Dr. Barbosa, we're so pleased to have you among us. Thank you for being here. The Haitian delegation wants to applaud the 2027 health report of PAHO, the 2025 annual report, I should say, the interpreter corrects herself, and the importance that it means for the hemisphere. PAHO remains a critical partner for us all throughout the hemisphere as regards fighting disease and particularly facing health emergencies and promoting more equitable health for every one of our populations. For Haiti, the support of Haiti is most special in a context that is rather complex, that has its own difficulties in the health area and challenges to face as regards public health and protecting our populations, particularly the poorest among us. So I take the opportunity to applaud the efforts that PAHO has deployed, not only to assist us in Haiti, but indeed to help the Americas as a whole. This alliance says everything we need to know for American solidarity and the importance of being population-based as we seek the measures to follow. We applaud this cooperation, and we look forward to furthering it in a region that ever becomes more resilient and more solid and shows greater solidarity amongst us. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador. Dr. Escobar, Guatemala is recognized. Thank you, Madam Chair of the Delegation of Guatemala. Joins in thanking PAHO for its 56th regular session Assembly's report and all of the work that has been carried out over the period covered. We are particularly pleased with regional efforts to boost public health, to broaden the coverage of precaution and more resilient and more people-based measures so to do. We are particularly pleased by PAHO's help in facing primary challenges, primary health challenges, and preparing the response to emergencies where they emerge. We are very pleased by the technical assistance that we've received in areas that are particularly dear to Guatemala and necessary to our people, eliminating communicable diseases and trying to better face emergencies when they arise and broaden the coverage in terms of vaccination and the prevention and control of non-communicable diseases. We know that there are still very important challenges to tackle, including better help to avoid preventable diseases through vaccination, considering the efforts of great climate impact on our emergencies, and how we can best do in the future. For this, solid and ongoing regional assistance and communication amongst us is essential, and PAHO is at the heart of that effort. And so we applaud all of the efforts that are being made to increase the prospect of health for every citizen in this hemisphere, and we hope that we have ever more inclusive and effective health systems throughout the system.
Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you very much, Chair. Excellencies, Director Barbosa, distinguished representatives of the Pan American Health Organization, with thanks for the presentation of the 2025 annual report and on behalf of the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis, in solidarity with our sister member states of the Caribbean community, St. Kitts and Nevis records profound appreciation for the extraordinary work of the Pan American Health Organization and its enduring contribution to the health, well-being, and resilience of the peoples of the Americas. For well over a century, PAHO has stood as a pillar of hemispheric cooperation, helping member states confront infectious diseases, strengthen health systems, expand access to vaccines and medicines, build resilience against natural disasters and health emergencies, and advance the shared goal of universal access to health. Through its technical cooperation, policy leadership, and unwavering commitment to equity, PAHO continues to improve lives and save lives in our region. We in St. Kitts and Nevis, together with CARICOM partners, have particularly benefited from PAHO's support in strengthening primary health care, advancing immunization programs, building digital health capacities, improving preparedness and response to emergencies, addressing non-communicable diseases, and ensuring access to essential medicines and health technologies through its regional revolving funds. These contributions have been invaluable in helping our small states navigate increasingly complex health challenges while striving to ensure that no one is left behind. For St. Kitts and Nevis, its long-standing partnership with the Pan American Health Organization has reaped the results of technical cooperation contributing to strengthening our public health infrastructure, expanding immunization coverage, enhancing preparedness and response capacities, and supporting national efforts to address both communicable and non-communicable diseases. Through its expertise shared, advocacy, and commitment to equitable access to health services and technologies, PAHO has remained an indispensable partner in our pursuit of improved health outcomes and sustainable development. St. Kitts and Nevis therefore records sincere appreciation for PAHO's enduring support and reaffirms our commitment to working collaboratively to ensure that the benefits of health innovation, prevention, and quality care reach all members of our society. As we reflect on the achievements of PAHO, we are reminded that the advancement of health is not solely the responsibility of institutions such as PAHO, but a shared obligation of all member states. The challenges of our time, whether pandemics, climate-related health threats, non-communicable diseases, mental health concerns, or inequitable access to healthcare and innovation, require sustained partnership, investment, and political will. St. Kitts and Nevis therefore reaffirms its felt responsibility to work alongside PAHO to ensure that quality healthcare, equitable access, and the benefits of emerging health technologies are available to our people. In so doing, we must embrace a holistic vision of well-being, one that recognizes the interdependence of physical, mental, social, and environmental health, and ensure that these principles are reflected in our policies, our institutions, and our daily lives. Working with and through PAHO, it now falls to all of us as member states to ensure that we shape a healthier, more resilient, and more prosperous hemisphere for all our peoples. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And now I give the floor to Ambassador Sanders from Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to be brief. Antigua and Barbuda could not let this moment pass without thanking Director Barbosa for his report, but also without noting with concern that PAHO's financial resources remain inadequate to meet growing regional health needs. We value the organization's essential role in supporting member states and recognize that its continued effectiveness depends on sustainable and sufficient funding. My delegation values the indispensable role the Pan American Health Organization plays in helping our countries address both communicable and non-communicable diseases. We are reminded of the lesson that became a global refrain during the COVID-19 pandemic. None of us is safe until all of us are safe. That truth remains as relevant today as it was during the crisis. We shudder to think how the countries of our hemisphere would respond to a new pandemic without the expertise, coordination, technical assistance, and leadership that PAHO provides. The health security of every nation in the Americas depends significantly on the continued strength and effectiveness of this organization. In this regard, we commend Dr. Barbosa and his dedicated team for their commitment to delivering high-quality services amid constrained resources. Their success in doing more with less is not only admirable, but also demonstrates how much more they could achieve with the financial resources needed to fulfill their mandate fully. My delegation therefore joins others in urging member states to regard support for PAHO not as an expenditure, but as an investment in the health, well-being, resilience, and economic security of our peoples. Finally, Chair, Antigua and Barbuda expresses its deep appreciation to Dr. Barbosa and the staff of PAHO for the support provided to our country during the 55th regular session of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States held in Antigua and Barbuda last June. We are particularly grateful for PAHO's engagement in advancing proposals to address the growing challenge of mental health, both within the inter-American system and the wider framework of the United Nations. Mental health is one of the defining public health challenges of our time, and we welcome PAHO's continued leadership in placing this issue where it belongs, at the center of our development agenda. We assure Dr. Barbosa and PAHO of Antigua Barbuda's continued support and partnership in the pursuit of healthier, more resilient, and more equitable societies throughout the Americas. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. And now we give the floor to Barbados.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My delegation welcomes the continued work of PAHO in strengthening public health systems, advancing disease prevention, and improving access to quality healthcare across the Americas. We welcome the annual report and commend PAHO for its leadership, technical expertise, and steadfast commitment to regional cooperation. These efforts have been instrumental in addressing both long-lasting and emerging health challenges, including AMR and the burden of non-communicable diseases. Barbados remains committed to working closely with PAHO and regional partners to promote healthier and more resilient communities, and to ensure that no one is left behind in the pursuit of improved health outcomes. Through collaboration, solidarity, and shared responsibility, we can build a safer, healthier, and more sustainable future for all. I thank you.
Thank you. And now we give the floor to Ambassador Risuto from the United States.
Thank you. I extend my thanks on behalf of the United States on today's presentation, along with the respective results. I'd like to direct my comments to the Secretary General and the Assistant Secretary General, together with the member states, as well as the stakeholders and interested parties. During these meetings and presentations, the Permanent Council can greatly benefit by being given simultaneously a brief financial snapshot. What is the total annual budget of PAHO in today's discussion? Does the OAS provide the primary funding, and or does the funding come from voluntary contributions? So it's a point of reference. What percentage of the OAS spending budget does this group represent? How do we know we should give more support if we don't even know what the percentage is, and our ability to allocate respective resources, which we should have as an ongoing perspective? Should the group perhaps receive more commitment on our part is a major point that I'm trying to emphasize. How would we know during these meetings? I sit through so many of these meetings and always hear the most beautiful speeches, yet I believe we could do far more by being more informed on the related financials. I will also stress, while we are given an allotment of 5 minutes in respect to global warming, I would kindly encourage brevity when we can be accommodated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And now we give the floor, le damos la palabra a la embajadora.
Ambassador Carmen Monton, representative of the Observer Delegation of Spain. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm very grateful to Dr. Barbosa for the report that he has shared with us and congratulate him for the work that PAHO carries out in the whole region. I equally am grateful for the good news in the health area, because that is good news for us all. It's a collective victory, like the push against malaria in Suriname or Brazil, helping reduce maternal and child death in cases of HIV and other instances. Mental health is another point that was raised and that matters a great deal to us. Particularly where emergencies are concerned, we are present in Jamaica, Haiti, and Cuba, and are pleased to have worked with PAHO there. Thank you also to Dr. Barbosa for referring to our cooperation. Our support is institutional, political, and financial. Spain maintains strategic cooperation that has been active for a very long time. Go back to 1980 when we received status first. the Spanish Agency for International Aid and its fund for PAHO and other voluntary contributions has been active since then. Our Spanish Agency for the Assistance in the Acquiring of Medication is another instance of the help that we are pleased to offer. There are others I could mention, our help in the prevention and fight against communicable diseases, including HIV, malaria, and others, including uterine cancer, and help to Haiti that we are pleased to help in so many areas. This help we consider is critical, not least in the area of the production of critical vaccinations. Under COVID-19, Spain, hand in hand with PAHO and the whole of Latin America and the Caribbean, worked together. It was a moment in which we were pleased to show our great support for our kin here, particularly with vaccinations as early as possible. Spain and the Caribbean are very tightly knit, and this is a sister and brotherhood that is all the more important when there are cases of, as there so many are, as so many arise, of epidemics that make it absolutely essential that we hold tight and do the best we can together. We are pleased also at this time of innumerable challenges, as Dr. Barbosa has reported in his very good report. I would simply like to say how much we attach our ongoing value and support to the help we can give. Spain is here for you, and we will defend global health and the right to universal health multilaterally. PAHO is without question one of the most critical strategic institutions in this hemisphere. So long live PAHO and bravo. Thank you, Ambassador. I recognize France.
Parole.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary General, Madam Assistant Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, permanent representatives. First, the permanent representation would like to thank the organization for opening their doors to the youth this morning, allowing 6 Lycée Français students to observe these debates and to see the importance of interregional cooperation. Thank you. On the issue at hand, we'd like to thank the director of PAHO for presenting his annual report. This report shows the resolute efforts of the organization to help participants in 6 territories of France in the Americas. France is committed to support World Health as referenced in the One Health Summit organized in April last year, which brought together 38 organizations, member states, and regional organizations, including PAHO, and a number of businesses and philanthropic organizations, all who contributed scientific experts, civil society, parliamentaries, youth, all around a common goal of anticipating and building a more resilient world for present generations and the future. Providing solutions and participation was supposed to contribute to deliveries of the One Health Summit, which led to 100 commitments by public and private sector to build a healthier world. Above and beyond World Health, strengthening regional cooperation in the area of health is also to strengthen our collective capacity to prevent, detect, and respond to health crises. That's why France is pleased to support PAHO's action through provision of an expert based in Barbados to look at climate change, social determinants, and environmental factors in health. And this year is supporting the elimination of malaria in the area. Through concrete action, France is and will continue to be a commitment partner of PAHO in the service of all in the Americas. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador, says the chair. And now, if I may, I would like to give a couple of minutes to Dr. Barbosa in the event that he may wish to respond to any of the comments or observations. You have the floor, sir. Thank you very much. I'll be very brief, says Dr. Barbosa. First, I'd like to thank each and every country that spoke on behalf of all those who work at the organization here in our headquarters in Washington, but also especially our teams and colleagues that work in the national offices who work hand in hand with healthcare ministries to advance health. I'd like to thank you. I'm very pleased to stress that even in a difficult situation, many countries are dealing with socioeconomic difficulties. In many countries of the region, despite that they made a strong commitment to make progress with healthcare systems, understanding that health is an integral part of sustainable development. So the achievements that we can present to you are truly the result of those efforts undertaken by each and every member state. And so once again, we'd like to thank the partners who are so important, Canada, Spain, and others. And I'd also like to mention France, which is a state that participates in the organization and which also supports us jointly. Finally, I'm very pleased to hear from each of you that there were concrete areas where we are supporting you in making progress in healthcare in your countries. For me, that is a clear testament of the fact that we are in line with the priorities set by countries in the region and with progress made, always respecting the priorities set by each and every country.
Just to say that the organization is making a tremendous effort to be more efficient. We propose it and our member states approve the reduced budget, and we have a totally transparent way to share with our member states during the subcommittee on planning, budget, and administration that met in March. During the next executive committee meeting, we will again share with our member states the situation of the organization, the budget, human resources, administration, financial situation in a totally transparent way as we do. And of course, we are available to engage with all member states that want to receive more and detailed information. We are an organization like OAS and all the other organizations that integrate the inter-American system that are member states-driven organizations. So I fully respect any suggestion, comment, or request to provide better information. But again, thank you very much. I am really honored to be leading an organization that is so important to work together with your government, with your population, to advance health and well-being in the Americas. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Barbosa. As there are no further statements, we would once again like to thank you for your presentation. We'd also like to thank you for your leadership in guiding the Pan American Health Organization. We'd also like to take note of the report that was presented and the recommendations, comments made, and most recent contributions, which are all very worthwhile. We will convey this to the next regular session of the General Assembly for its consideration in Panama. If there are no objections, it is so agreed. Thank you, Doctor, for your visit, and thank you to your delegation.
Como siguiente punto del orden del
The next item on our agenda, and with regard to the request put forth by the permanent missions of Guatemala, Brazil, Canada, Colombia, Mexico, Panama, Dominican Republic, and Uruguay, we will now address the presentation of resolution number 1/26 of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, entitled Organized Crime and Human Rights in the Americas. For consideration of this item on our agenda, we'd like to most warmly welcome Commissioner Estuardo Ralón. He is chair of the IACHR, and we welcome him in the room today with us. So without further ado, I will give you the floor for up to 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Thank you. Thank you, Excellency Ambassador Solano, Chair of the Permanent Council of the Organization of American States. Excellency Mr. Albert Ramdin, Secretary General of the Organization of American States. Excellency Madam Laura Hill, Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of American States. Heads of delegation, permanent representatives and alternates, and observers. Ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to appear before the Permanent Council in my capacity as Chair of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, in order to present to you Resolution 1/26 on organized crime and human rights, which was unanimously adopted by the Commission. May I begin by explaining the spirit behind this instrument and our presentation of it. The Inter-American system is by nature a subsidiary body and complementary in nature. Its primary responsibility is to guarantee the security and the rights of all persons residing in states in the full enjoyment of their sovereignty. The Commission is not attempting to replace the function or impose any models. It is here to support, to orient, and to make available to states technical tools that they themselves can use to contribute. It's based on this principle that the resolution is not the result of a closed process. It's the result of a broad participatory process, consultation with states, with civil society, the academic world, experts, and national institutions of human rights, along with contributions from public hearings. There are 50 recommendations set forth, which provide you with a toolbox which is in the service of states in order to adapt them to your own realities and your priorities. If I may be clear here, I'd like to speak to the urgency that brings us together. In our region, some 9% of the world population, approximately of 1/3 of all homicides committed on the planet, are committed in our region. And behind that figure, behind each figure, there's a face. There's a woman who's looking for her disappeared son. There's a journalist who was silenced, a girl who was recruited, or an entire community which is subject to fear. Organized crime has stopped being just a problem of public security. Today, it is a structural threat to the rule of law and democratic governance. Where the state cannot guarantee rights, criminal groups then impose their own order using violence, corruption, and terror. They create parallel power structures, and the consequences of this are not equally distributed. They hit mostly those who live in conditions of poverty, exclusion, or historical discrimination. Given this challenge, the Commission reaffirms a conviction that is threaded throughout the resolution, and that is that the security and human rights are not contradictory to each other. Rather, they're mutually supportive. The regional experience shows us that merely repressive measures or state of siege in a prolonged manner or operations which are very lethal or not coordinated do not actually reduce violence in a sustainable manner. The most effective responses, those that are most legitimate and that last the longest, are those that are built based on strict adherence to the rule of law and due process. And based on this principle, the resolution proposes a comprehensive and structural strategy. It emphasizes prevention and addresses the deep-seated causes of crime. It includes a differentiated approach based on people who are the most vulnerable. It protects freedom of expression and access to information as antidotes to corruption, strengthening the protection of victims and witnesses and their rights to full reparations. And it strengthens judicial independence, effective investigation, and combats money laundering and impunity. We believe that complementarity is a method, and so the Commission is not limiting itself to issue recommendations. It's reiterating its full willingness to provide technical cooperation to support those states that would so wish. And it provides these recommendations that can then translate into concrete policy in the context of its mandate and with full respect of the jurisdiction of each state. I conclude with a very simple idea, one that is key, and that is including human rights in security policy is not an obstacle to effectiveness. It's the very sine qua non condition for it. A state that protects is a stronger state, never weaker. Because security is not measured not just in the number of people arrested or seizures, but it's in the confidence the community can place in being able to sleep at night. For the girl who's able to walk home from school without fear, the family that's able to recover the certainty that the state is on its side. It's the security in this resolution that we seek to build and provide assistance for, and this path always based on respect, standing at the side of states, never above them. That is where the Inter-American Commission will be present. Thank you, Commissioner, says the chair. I now am very pleased to welcome virtually His Excellency Marco Antonio Villeda, Minister of the Interior of the Republic of Guatemala. Let's see if we have him online. Mr. Minister, I'd like to give the floor to you. Welcome to the Permanent Council. Welcome from Guatemala. We're giving you the floor for 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
Gracias, excelentísima embajadora.
Thank you, Excellency. Chair of the Permanent Council, Excellency Abradin, Secretary General of the OAS, Excellency Assistant Secretary General, Madame Laura Gil, heads of delegation, permanent representatives and alternates, and observer states, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. In our region, it's a fact that millions of people live on a daily basis caught between two deep fears, the fear of violence and the fear of losing their rights. Perhaps one of the greatest challenges to our democracy is precisely in demonstrating that no citizen should feel obligated in choosing between the two. And that's why we welcome the contents of the resolution entitled Organized Crime and Human Rights in the Americas. And here we recognize the important role played by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights in the democratic consolidation of our region. This instrument is particularly relevant for our region. It invites us to reflect on one of the most complex challenges that our democracies are currently facing. And what is that? It's the capacity to effectively respond to expansion and transformation of organized crime. From the state of Guatemala, we have decided to make a priority the strengthening of our democratic security as a vision which would be based on measurable results, institutional strengthening, and unlimited respect for fundamental rights. I began my post in October of last year in a very complex context in terms of governance and security in my country. It was a situation marked by threats coming from organized crime structures, even operating from within prisons. Given this situation, we took on the commitment to strengthening citizen safety firmly, but also we committed to irrestrictive respect of human rights and the rule of law. In that context, I believe it's important to highlight here that my portfolio and my team is working to implement public policies to protect defenders of human rights in Guatemala. The goal here is to establish comprehensive mechanisms for prevention, protection, and the guarantee for the legitimate exercise and defense of human rights in my country. We've made progress. We've created new offices that provide security which is based on rights. However, Guatemala continues to grapple with the challenge of strengthening its penitentiary system. For years, this was a space for condemnation and rehabilitation. We are trying to convert these prisons into centers where we can continue, where we can stop the continued operation of criminal operations, threats, extortion, and violence against the population. This is why we've driven action that's geared to institutional oversight of these centers, strengthening oversight mechanisms, modernizing the infrastructure of these prisons, and professionalizing the staff that work in the prisons. Also, we have strengthened police professionalization processes, technical criminal investigation, and technological modernization. We've incorporated better analysis capacity, interinstitutional coordination, and we've combated complex phenomena such as extortion, drug trafficking, trafficking of persons, and cybercrime. All of this is done based on the principles of legality, proportionality, and democratic responsibility. In Guatemala, we recognize that there are still significant challenges before us. We also recognize that the region is grappling with increasingly complex and dynamic challenges, and no country can deal with this alone. Phenomena such as transnational organized crime, illicit economies, trafficking networks, or challenges that relate to digital security or border security, no one can grapple with that alone. For states, protection of human rights and effective citizen security should not be seen as incompatible goals. To the contrary, legitimate security can only be brought about with the rule of law, transparent institutions that are sound and that respect human dignity. Because when a state does not have the ability to grapple with organized crime, the ones that suffer the most are families, small businesses, the young people, indigenous people, children, and teenagers. The regional priority to combat this phenomenon should be focused on strengthening democratic security, institutional strengthening, and unlimited respect of fundamental rights. That should be the vision. And that's why states need to work together based on the idea that citizen safety is also a human right. Every mother has the right to go home in safety. They have the right to run their businesses without threats or extortion. It's the right of a child to grow up far from violence. It's the right of a community to be able to trust institutions once again. The response of organized crime, or the response to organized crime, should be seen as a comprehensive policy of democratic strengthening, a policy which places people at the very center of public decisions that would then combine security, justice, prevention, development, social inclusion, and international cooperation. That vision means that states must assume responsibility for citizen security from the point of view operationally that would then combine the responsibility of strengthening institutions, recover territorial control legitimately, and modernize state capacity, thereby guaranteeing public action that is maintained within a democratic context and overseeing implementation of recommendations of the Inter-American Commission and the resolution. Citizen safety cannot be built based on reaction. That's why states must drive forward preventative efforts based on communities and territories oriented to strengthening peaceful coexistence, recovering citizen confidence and trust, and bringing institutions closer to the real needs of the people through prevention of violence programs. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why a democracy cannot be measured by its laws. Rather, it can be measured by its institutions' ability to respond with legitimacy, humanity, and effectiveness to the challenges its population faces. Criminal organizations prosper where opportunity is scarce, where institutional confidence is weakened, and where people feel that the state is not able to respond to their needs. That's why we must continue strengthening regional cooperation, the exchange of good practices, and we must continue working together with multilateral organizations and with the Inter-American human rights system. We are convinced that states in the Americas need stronger institutions, institutions that are more transparent, more human, and closer to the reality of their citizens. Democracy can be consolidated when a citizen can live free of fear, and when an institution acts within the law, and when a state can show that it can protect human dignity without renouncing to democratic order. That is the path that states in the region should follow. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, for your statement, which the Permanent Council has taken due note of. And now to conclude with the initial presentations, I would ask the Secretary to project the video with a statement of Mr. Bruno Paes Manso, Brazilian journalist, researcher, and writer, who will be giving us a pre-recorded presentation. Madam Chair, ambassadors, alternates, representatives of the Secretariat of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, and panelists, good day. Once again, I'm here as a journalist, academic researcher, academic writer from the University of Sao Paulo, and I have more than 30 years researching and studying the topic of public safety, crime, and human rights. I think I can say that at this time, given the currents, we've never had such a challenging time in terms of crime. With technological transformation, especially the financial system, with Bitcoin, virtual money, cryptocurrencies, money migrating to the cloud, technology has made it possible for crime to become more sophisticated, to be more powerful economically and financially. It's made it possible for crime to infiltrate the state in policy, politics, and the formal market. And what that means is that we have to look back and see the mistakes that were made in public policy and understand what's important. And here I think it's important, especially in the context of Brazilian history, the defense of human rights was often, the people were destigmatized, and defenders of human rights tended to focus on public policy that led to collateral damage and increase of crime and the loss of the rule of law. One was police violence. That was one consequence. With extensive territory of military police presence, they made the prisons and made these prisons full of poor people. They were throughout Brazil. So these were two areas of public policy which led to unfortunate consequences. That's why extensive territory presence of military presence carried on into the 90s, more than 900,000 prisoners in Brazil. What happened as a result of that? On the one hand, Brazil created an anti-system rhetoric where the young people were encouraged then to be part of criminal gangs, crime to face crime. Many communities felt violated, and at the same time, they were able to organize themselves and coordinate from within the prisons. And this, they often were run by the criminals, generally speaking. So these policies, these two policies that up until now has been part of the people's prison system and the system in place which has led to more than 6,000 deaths due to police action. There's been a defense of a war against crime, and it led to collateral damage, which then strengthened the criminal faction. And if we research 30 years later, we see that there are 90 gangs throughout Brazilian territory, throughout the country, operating throughout the prisons. In every single state, crime has become a nationwide phenomenon. And it's actually started working through the financial formal system, and it's involved in policy in a way that in politics I've never seen before. And that's why taking a critical view of what happened in the past is not just about defending the principle of human rights as a democratic principle or a universal principle to guarantee rights that arose with democracy and with the emergence of rule of law, or it's not abstract defense of human rights and principles here. It's really about public policy that ultimately ended up to weaken those groups and break them down, and which there was a disrespect of human right that was the basis of public policy in the past. So this is a challenge which continues to be huge, because we try to say and try to argue that actually what many people defend as a remedy ends up being a poison for us and weakens our democratic institutions. It weakens the rule of law, and it strengthens the prison gangs, as we've seen happen over the last 30 years. So what happens? People who defend these policies, even understanding that they were erroneous and that they led to all this collateral damage and unfortunate consequence, they imagine that based either on faith or ignorance or not critically observing what happened, rather than thinking about alternative solutions, they defend that this remedy, this poisonous remedy, should be multiplied, increased. It's poison for the people. And as we see, it actually ends up having the wrong effect and strengthens those gangs. So our discussion and debate around human rights to weaken crime and to show that very often defending the war or defending police violence ends up leading to a lack of control, and it ends up weakening oversight of the police and institutions. And then the police end up working for crime because the life and death, the illegitimate action, there's a huge cost, a huge price that has to be paid for these prison gangs operating. So often the disrespect of human rights promotes the police of crime, criminal police, and weakens democratic institutions. So our challenge is actually that, to understand the reasoning. We need to look at crime in a rational manner, in a thoughtful manner, to how to weaken these groups while respecting rights. And we need to look at it that way, not as to be good morally or virtue signaling. It's not an ethical issue. The disrespect of human rights and crime weakens legality. It promotes crime by the police and delegitimizes the rule of law and democratic institutions. So this is not just about principle. It's about 30 years of data that we have, 30 years of information we have that shows the unfortunate effects of our mistakes. So I hope that I've helped with my contribution, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. Until later. Thank you for that video that we just heard. I'd also like to thank the delegation of Brazil for helping us contact Mr. Manso so that we could have him with us to do. We have two more speakers who will be speaking online. I'd like to give the floor to Ambassador Escobar. You have the floor, sir. Thank you very much. The delegation of Guatemala would like to thank Commissioner Estuardo Ralón, President of the IHCR, for presenting the Resolution 126, entitled Organized Crime and Human Rights in the Americas. We would like to extend our recognition to the distinguished panelists with us today. The Minister of the Interior of Guatemala, Minister Villeda, and Mr. Bruno Paes Manso, the Brazilian journalist, for his thoughts on one of the more complex issues of our region. For my delegation, this resolution is of particular importance, especially because it was presented in the context of the 125th session of the IACHR in March in Guatemala. It's particularly significant that it was presented here in the Permanent Council as a regional reference for comprehensively addressing organized crime from the point of view of human rights. As was well put by Minister Villeda, this multidimensional phenomena needs a firm hand, but it also requires coordination with international standards. It needs to uphold those standards in human rights. Human rights and controlling crime are not contradictory goals. On the contrary, they're complementary to build sustainable and resilient democracies. Organized crime is one of the most serious threats to our democracies and for the effective exercise of human rights in the Americas. Not only does it create violence, but it also weakens institutions, fuels corruption, weakens citizen trust, and deepens structural inequity. Often criminal organizations try to weaken institutions and take advantage of social exclusion and state weakness. And thus, we very much value the fact that the Inter-American Commission has promoted a regional framework that recognizes that reactive responses are not enough to be able to grapple with complex criminal structures that are also transnational. We fully agree that policies for security need to be comprehensive, sustainable, and evidence-based. Guatemala is grappling with significant challenges related to drug trafficking, extortion, illicit trafficking of persons, and other forms of organized crime and transnational organized crime. We also recognize the significant progress achieved in the area of citizen security and strengthening institutions. In recent years, there's been a sustained reduction of the homicide rate compared with previous years. In that context, it's vital to continue building capacity in criminal investigation, to share information about illicit financial networks, and strengthen independence of the judiciary. Combating organized crime requires sound and coordinated institutions and regional cooperation and international cooperation that's effective. My delegation also agrees with the Commission about strengthening the social response to violence. It is fueled in a context of a lack of opportunity and exclusion. That's why public policy needs to include strategies oriented towards education, community development, social exclusion, and the full protection of boys, girls, and adolescents vis-a-vis recruitment from organized crime. Resolution 126 is a significant contribution for the hemisphere, and Guatemala reiterates its recognition to the Commission for this effort and reaffirms its willingness to continue working with other member states, the Commission, and civil society to strengthen democratic responses that are effective and respectful of human rights vis-a-vis organized crime. Thank you.
Gracias a usted, embajadora, y de nuevo por su...
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and through you also our greetings to the Minister. Mexico is recognized. Mexico wishes to join others in expressing its thanks for those who have spoken on the importance of continuing to fight organized crime so that democracy and the people who inhabit democracies can best be protected and furthered. We believe that the strategies that we must marshal in order to combat organized crime need to be comprehensive. They need to strengthen democracy, the state of law, and human rights. We consider it absolutely essential that there be professional agencies that are subject to accountability to carry out this task and ensure that fighting crime within a legal framework is done as it should be. We need also to tackle the root of this evil and what we can do to curb the criminal activities and the groups that further them. So any strategy that aims to do that is certainly something that we support. Mexico believes strongly in regional efforts to ensure that the stability of the democracies of the states in this region may be protected, and that assistance in the area of mutual aid are key to assist us in fighting the phenomena that in fact know no borders and affect us all. The witnesses, the lawyers, the newspaper people, everybody who has been affected by organized crime must be uppermost in our minds. Mexico has an exceptionally effective legal framework just to do that. There is a law that speaks particularly to journalists and human rights protectors who are also journalists or not, as the case may be. We have found to be absolutely essential means by which we can continue to fight for life and fight for democracy and the exercise of human rights across the board. The general law on victims, as it is called, recognize justice, protection, and integral and comprehensive reparation as key. We offer specialized assistance in order to try to restore the shards of the lives of those who have been affected by this organized crime. And we try very much to answer to the specific needs of such victims. But let us not forget that organized crime is something that erodes democracy. It erodes citizenry. And that is why it's so important to strengthen the specialized units that fight recovery of assets and accountability, and strengthen the agencies that are key in ensuring that justice is not only mentioned, but is in fact implemented and available. There are fundamental freedoms that have to be remembered here. Any state action has to be in the context of due process, the presumption of innocence, expression, freedom of expression, inter alia. To end, Chair, as the resolution rightly points out, it's essential that we continue to fight the criminal weaponry and the trade in weapons. Consultative Opinion 3035 of the Inter-American Court on Human Rights on the responsibility of the governments regarding the illicit trafficking of firearms is key here. And we would underscore yet again the responsibility of both the exporters and the importers of such weaponry to do more to avoid the derailment of legal weapons to illegal markets and activities. We must dismantle the financial capacity and literally the fire that those groups have. It's only through effective international associations and better protection of people who are at risk and an unbridled response and protection of human rights. That is the only way that we will see a way to fighting organized crime. Thank you so much, Ambassador, says the chair. Colombia is recognized. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I hail the contributions of all of the panelists on such an important issue as we are discussing. We particularly feel that it is apt that we discuss this at a time when criminality in our hemispheres is so rampant. We've got to do better. This is a phenomenon that keeps developing and shifting and changing. These people have transnational crimes. They use all sorts of illicit means by which they erode our democracies. Drug trafficking involves not only trafficking in weapons, but in human trafficking and in so many other ways that are a great danger to us all. We must recognize that the violence from which we all suffer is an example of the deep presence of these criminal groups among us. And the ultimate aim of those groups, of course, is to break down the rule of law. We cannot let that happen, and it's important that we keep fighting for immediate results. That said, it is absolutely key, Colombia feels, that we resist the right to take a shortcut or try to take measures that appear to be an easy way to go and which will only weaken fundamental freedoms and results that in the medium term we might have had. This is a complex issue, and that is why we say there is no contradiction between security and human rights. All the contrary. Important strategies in the context of security are those that are deeply rooted in the rule of law and in the institutions of our people and the protection of our citizens. It is absolutely key, then, that we develop a comprehensive approach to this fight. And where social exclusion, inequality, and weak institutionality are present, we must act. We need public policies that are effective and that are sustainable. We, for one, continue along the road of focusing always on human security, on communities, and on territories, and try to take a comprehensive look at what generates violence. We have come up with strategies that have helped indicate, giving us an early warning system of the problems that we may come across and what the government can do better to tailor the measures to local communities. The dismantlement of criminal groups and the guarantees of security that are part of peace treaties are essential, where witnesses, newspaper people, and defenders of human rights are considered to be the key actors that indeed they are, so that we can approach the macro criminality that attacks us in a more effective way. We need public policies that are evidence-based, that are rooted in civil society, academia, and the communities that are most effective, and that strengthen the state's, capital S, ability to transform and to gird itself. It's only these ways, and in respecting human rights, that we can do better in fighting organized crime, and doing so in a visible and effective manner. I thank you. Thank you. Ambassador Lanza of Uruguay is recognized. Thank you so much, Chair. I wish also to join others in thanking the human rights organization among us for the information that has been offered and all the insight that panelists have given us. This is to our collective benefit. We feel that how best we can strengthen state responses to organized crime is important for us to continue pondering. This is important to human rights. It's important to the rule of law. We know what a multidimensional, terrible, terrible threat organized crime represents to us all. It undergirds it fails to undergird our trust in the state and the expansion of criminal groups, the ongoing attack on vulnerable communities, and the constant new modalities of criminality that crop up right and left cannot go unchallenged. That is why we need to find more effective means to face this scourge and fight the trafficking in munitions, cybercrime, and crime on the data, in the computers and the data processes. It's essential that we also strengthen our justice systems, because these are terribly complex activities where money laundering and corruption are stealthy enemies. We know how strongly financed these efforts are by somebody who has the money and the ill will. We have got to come up with legal assistance, cooperation amongst our police, amongst our states, and all multilateral weapons that we have available, so that our collective response to this phenomenon, which is by definition bigger than all of us and bigger than any one of our borders, can make a difference. Certainly, criminal pursuit and international cooperation is essential, but if there are not public policies that attack the structural reasons that operate in favor of those criminal groups, is essential. And jobs, community development, education, health, all of these means of reaching youngsters and adolescents are key. If we don't deal with these, we will lose out. And so, as the Commission itself has pointed out, all of this has a terrible impact on the development of human rights and disproportionately hurts those who are most vulnerable to begin with. That is why we must look at what we can do better to fight the exclusion, fight the ongoing erosion, small children or those who are particularly vulnerable to those criminal groups are the most vulnerable. Needless to say, the Afro-descendants, the indigenous peoples, and so many others, the defenders, public defenders, justice operators, are all right on the front line of the greatest dangers. And the criminals among us know it. So we would like to say that there is no contradiction between the defense of human rights and the efficiency of our security and the prosecution against organized crime. Far to the contrary, we believe very strongly that as we uphold human rights, we will be upholding the legitimacy of our institutions and will build trust in the public. That is why we call upon the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to assist us in doing more, to look not just on penal repression, but on the many other ways that we can do better in coming up with strategies that make a difference. Uruguay believes strongly that these tools must be used, and we have elaborated a national plan that is comprehensive and that is of many years running, that focus on human rights and the cycle of life and the prevention and of crime and prosecution of the criminal groups. This represents, we believe, a shared responsibility between society and the state, capital S. And that is how our institutions can make a difference through the public policies that are always evidence-based. Thanks very much. Thank you, Ambassador, says the chair. Panama is recognized. Thank you. Madam Chair, we wish to express our deep appreciation to all who have spoken, and that explains so much the terrible effect of organized crime on our democracies. We're very grateful also to Guatemala and the states who have pushed for us to hold this debate, Resolution 126 of the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, which constitutes an invaluable means by which we can better face organized crime and tackle this terrible scourge. Panama recognizes that transnational organized crime is one of the most complex and ongoing perils to us all. All of this goes straight to citizens' safety and democracy itself. It undergirds the ability of democracies to reach out to the most vulnerable. We need to build, and as we in Panama are, a bridge between the continents. We urge all of us to do more, to work more closely together, and to find the institutional capacities that we can all contribute. No country is free from the challenge that this represents, and certainly none of us can go it alone. That's why fighting this criminality is absolutely essential to call upon us all, and we must always, without exception, defend human rights. We must look to the security and justice and penal institutions among us to support them in a context of transparency, accountability, and due process. The best way we can fight organized crime is through professional and resilient organizations that know who they are and how they can fight them within the public arena. We also believe that institutional agreements such as we have are the way to go. No one can go it alone. This is bigger than any one of us and almost bigger than all of us. That's why the points made by the UN Commission against organized crime and the protocols are treaties on which we can grow. Mutual assistance and better coordination regionally. Thirdly, we believe that security and safety policies must always be rooted in international law, in democracy, and in inter-American standards of human rights. The protection of human rights and safety of the citizenry are two hands that are self-sustaining. One hand washes the other. That is why those who are most vulnerable, justice operators, journalists, public persons who defend human rights, who are mostly at risk, need our assistance the most. Technological innovation and better cooperation and the exchange of best practices are key in this regard. Madam Chair, Panama, as chair of the chairman of the hemispheric activities in this regard, has pushed all of us to do more to fight the delinquency in our region. We're convinced that we need comprehensive responses that are coordinated and that are rooted in mutual agreement and the rule of law, above all. Panama pushes for closer association amongst neighbors and strategic countries to strengthen our borders and find coordinating answers to answer the great security challenges of this region. This must always respect the constitutions of the states, the agreements that have been struck amongst them. To conclude, we would simply say that this resolution offers a very valuable opportunity to hold high our hemispheric dialogue and come up with policies that are sustainable. The gangs are ever more sophisticated. We have to coordinate as well and better than they do. We have to work collectively, and we must build societies that are ever more resilient for all. Thank you. Thank you. Says the chair, Costa Rica is recognized. Thank you. Costa Rica is deeply grateful for this Resolution 116 that the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights has presented on organized crime and human rights in the Americas. We are also very pleased at the initiative that Guatemala has launched and co-sponsored by Brazil, Mexico, Paraguay, and others to strengthen that hemispheric support. This delegation feels that it is especially relevant that that resolution is multilateral, as is the activity of gangs in this hemisphere. So the rule of law and the effective rooting in human rights in this region are essential. We also value the fact that these structures have differentiated impact on persons who are particularly vulnerable, including women, little girls, adolescents, young boys, indigenous peoples, Afro-descendants, migrants, newspaper people, and defenders of human rights everywhere. Costa Rica fully shares, therefore, how critical it is that we move towards state-supported policies that are coordinated and that avoid being overly repressive and uphold human rights above all in their policies, in justice and institutional justice. In a context and hemispheric reality that is becoming ever more challenging, where criminal gangs are rife, we must exchange information more effectively and do better for our states, always within the context of international law and total respect for human rights. This delegation, therefore, Chair, would merely say that we need to strike a good balance between security and fundamental freedoms. The fight against organized crime cannot take place at the expense of democracy, due process, and freedom of expression, nor can it happen without due protection for all, particularly at a time when we most need the centrality of the rule of law. That is why Costa Rica considers it absolutely essential that all of the means by which we can protect victims and fight violence, protect the witnesses that are testifying, and continue to help fight corruption and illegal flows that are so necessary to international crime in the hemisphere. That is why, Madam Chair, We recognize the tremendous challenge that faces us all, and we recognize the value of this resolution and feel that it is a signal contribution to our Inter-American dialogue. We must come up with public policies that are more comprehensive and more effective. We therefore absolutely support our hemispheric work and the work for human rights throughout the hemisphere, and how we must continue to defend democracy, institutionality, and human dignity above all. Thank you. Thank you, Costa Rica. Chile is recognized. Thank you, Madam Chair. We are taking the floor for the first time today, and therefore we greet you and the Assistant Secretary General, and thank you for your assistance. Chair, Chile is very grateful to the Permanent Mission on Guatemala and the co-sponsors for having asked that we consider this issue today. And we take good note of the work that the ISEHR is carrying out on the resolution. 126 broaches a phenomenon that is cross-cutting and is very dangerous to all of our democracies. Several of these recommendations indeed address the whole of our countries from the standpoint of public policy, and it is from that standpoint that we would offer the following thoughts. First of all, we think it's important that these facts be gathered, including the data on recommendation 22, witnesses, and recommendations 18 to 21, the recommendation regarding the recovery of assets, recommendations 18, 30, and 35, social reinsertion 26, international cooperation 29, and institutional capturing recommendations 36 and 37, respectively. We know that many of these recommendations are very much within the four corners of those standards and the defense of victims. The new service of social reinsertion and security are a good example. Also, the way in which judicial powers can be used to buttress the institutionality of our justice systems, and how modernization of the normative system of corporations, notary publics, and law 121,812 can be used to assist us in fighting organized crime more effectively, particularly where complex cases are involved. One of the important parts of these recommendations goes to the design of public policies, except states of exception, border areas, and the use of force in fighting drugs. We believe that all of this needs to be looked at very carefully by the respective ministries, and any groups of measures that can be taken in this hemisphere need to be examined very, very carefully, so that we know that the measures are solid and coherent. It is in that same vein that we like to remember the meeting that was held in May 2026 this year in Santiago, and the Declaration of Santiago that was signed by Argentina, Peru, and other neighboring countries that speak of the importance of weighing this phenomenon and tackling it in a balanced and equitable way. At the 55th meeting of Interior Secretaries and Mercosur and other ministries of justice that were held at the 29th of May in Asunción are other points of reference, and a good stance against transnational organized crime. We consider that this is a key issue for all of us, and that we need to work in a more coordinated fashion within and among our own countries, within the context of the Inter-American system. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Ambassador Savage of Canada is recognized. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We're deeply grateful for all of the statements that have been heard today. And we also thank the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights for having put before us this resolution on human rights in the Americas. We understand the statement that respect and human rights are key and cannot be overridden. That is why we believe that we need to find concrete measures to see how we can better tackle these tremendous scourges. We hope that our approaches can be better tailored as we tackle organized crime while bearing in mind the rights of the populations that are affected and all of those who are touched by historic and long-time discrimination. We know that to support our public policies is a means by which we can better gird our international organization. The document we have before us, I believe, is something that all of us, all actors involved, deserve to look at very carefully.
Growing scale and complexity of criminal activity across the Americas threatens regional security and our prosperity. It undermines democratic governance and drives illicit flows such as drug supply chains, money laundering networks, and cyber-enabled crime. These challenges are daunting, but they also give us the opportunity to work together to strengthen our partnership in the region, such as through the OAS, and to align our security efforts to deliver even more tangible results. Achieving these objectives requires anchoring our efforts in the rule of law, effective and inclusive governance, and respect for human rights. Where access to rights and justice is limited, organized crimes seek to gain a foothold and legitimacy. These groups exploit gaps in governance by fueling corruption, fostering grievances, and attempting to position themselves as alternative providers of protection, livelihood, and respect. They offer false promises of opportunity and escape, often deepening the very vulnerabilities they claim to address. While we recognize the significant human, social, and economic harms caused by organized crime, criminal narratives can still resonate where people see few viable alternatives. The Sustainable Development Goals provide a framework for addressing these vulnerabilities. By strengthening access to rights and building resilient, inclusive societies, we can reduce the influence and appeal of organized criminal networks. At the same time, enforcement and accountability must remain central to our efforts. Canada is taking concrete action to combat transnational organized crime by investing in operational capacity, strengthening institutions, and enhancing regional cooperation. A cornerstone of this effort is Canada's anti-crime capacity building program. Through this program, Canada is currently supporting 40 active capacity building initiatives in Latin America and the Caribbean. These strengthen both regional and bilateral security partnerships. Domestically, Canada is responding to the synthetic drug crisis by disrupting criminal networks through advanced detection technologies, expanded intelligence and enforcement operations, and strengthened cross-border collaboration. Through Canada's border plan, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police is enhancing efforts to disrupt fentanyl production and trafficking, including through aerial surveillance and joint operations targeting precursor chemicals and organized crime networks. Canada is strengthening financial intelligence through the Integrated Money Laundering Intelligence Partnership, improving information sharing with financial sectors, and disrupting illicit financial flows linked to organized crime. All these efforts are grounded in respect for human rights and the rule of law. Canadian officials are trained to uphold our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, due process, and privacy protections. These principles guide our approach to legislation and international cooperation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. Tiene la palabra.
Give the floor to Ambassador Belli of Brazil. And thank you also for bringing a speaker to our panelists on this item. Thank you, Chair, for that acknowledgement. Brazil commends Guatemala's initiative to include this item on our agenda, and we were very proud to co-sponsor it along with other delegations. We also would like to thank the chair of the ACHR for presenting this resolution, 1/26. It was approved in February of this year and marks an important turning point. For the first time, the Inter-American Human Rights System offers an integrated, robust, and politically mature framework for grappling with the issue of organized crime and not seeing it just as a human rights problem, seeing it as a human rights problem and not just security. We recognize the seriousness of the phenomenon, and it's because we understand that purely reactive responses based on repression have clearly proven to be insufficient. Organized crime is not on the periphery. The issue with them is the opacity. Trying to grapple with it through human rights is the most effective way to use financial intelligence, flexible coordination, and political determination amongst our states is the only way to deal with it. And it's based on this conviction that Brazil mobilized in recent months a legislative effort, an institutional one that's without precedent. The anti-gang law approved by Congress and the National Program for Grappling with Organized Crime by the executive in May revolves around four main areas: financial asphyxiation of criminal organizations, strengthening the prison system, stopping homicides, and combating trafficking of arms. The program provides resources to some 11 billion reais, or $2.2 billion, throughout its implementation. Chair, groups are looking at focusing on the gaps, and today there are structural efforts looking at profits through coordinated menace. They often exploit the gaps in our systems and the weaknesses and maximize the profits. A problem of this kind and of this complexity is not going to be solved simply. That's why we think that it's important to present new ideas based on cooperation and based on lasting solutions. Criminal organization and terrorism are distinct legal categories, and mixing them does not strengthen the state. The response should be measured by its effectiveness and not by the rhetoric. So there's a political determination to fully implement the tools we already have: legal cooperation, exchange of intelligence, compartmentalization of police information, frozen assets. The Palermo Convention, other conventions can help us. What's lacking sometimes is using them to their full effect. And we reaffirm with conviction that public safety and human rights are not contradictory. They are mutually reinforcing. Resolution 126 of the Commission reminds us of this specifically. Communities with access to rights are more resilient to crime. Legitimate institutions are more effective in combating crime. Responding to the challenge involves more democracy, more rights, and more cooperation. And based on these convictions, Brazil would invite all member states to build together through hemispheric security that's at the level of our societies and basic principles. Thank you. I now give the floor to Ambassador Coronado of Peru. Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the presentation of the Chair of the Inter-American Human Rights Commission and the Minister of the Interior of Guatemala and Mr. País Manso. The resolution before us today is a timely, very timely document that addresses one of the most serious, cross-cutting, and complex issues facing our societies. Organized crime is not just an issue of public security. It also erodes the rule of law, confidence of citizens in our institutions through corruption. It threatens the judiciary and directly impacts the freedom and full exercise of fundamental rights of our peoples. Its impact also especially worse for vulnerable populations, including women, children, adolescents, indigenous peoples, Afro-descendants, migrants, journalists, judiciary, and defenders of human rights. From that point of view, Peru appreciates the resolution, the principles enshrined in the resolution, combating organized crime with firmly with intelligence, international cooperation, and effective prosecution of criminal institutions. But it also is involving due process, strengthening institutions, accountability, effective recovery of territory where the state needs to be present, with security, justice, public service, and development opportunities. Peru believes that there's no contradiction between security and human rights. To the contrary, a legitimate security policy which is effective needs to be based on sound institutions with trained professionals, independent judiciary, criminal specialized investigation, oversight of illicit assets, protection of witnesses and witnesses and victims. A secure society needs to be based on proportionality of the response. And we'd also like to highlight the importance of hemispheric cooperation vis-a-vis the K phenomenon, given the nature of it being cross-border and the adaptive and transnational methods used. The illicit trafficking of drugs, persons, and arms, and illegal laws, laundering, extortion, and crime. Peru also believes that the relevance of this discussion takes place in the context of multidimensional security of the OAS. The efforts of the Commission and the Multidimensional Security Department and efforts against transnational organized crime and other bodies of this organization should be seen as complementary and mutually reinforcing. Finally, my country would reiterate its commitment to the inter-American human rights system with a hemispheric agenda that makes it possible to face organized crime with determination, operation, and with attachment to democratic institutions. We appreciate the Commission for putting this issue in the center of our debate, and we appreciate efforts to continue working constructively to support the OAS's efforts towards a common response to this shared challenge. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Coronel. I now give the floor to the Ambassador of Ecuador. Why, if we understand this, we are not doing so well in Latin America vis-a-vis crime? The Inter-American Development Bank reports that crime consumes some 3.5% of the GDP regionally, and that's comparable to educational expenditures. There are rights for our children, for our young people. There's a right to education that yet many of us have not been able to fulfill, to make education available, quality and acceptable, adaptable education available to all, because our resources are being consumed by security. Human rights should be the great standard that dictates our action above and beyond any political trend and any agreed reality. I'd like to extend cordial greetings to the Bureau and all those present here today. Based on the resolution that we're looking at today, the Republic of Ecuador appreciates the opportunity to clarify some issues. Not so much for, however, we would like to commend the Commission and the co-sponsoring states for this opportunity. As is well known by everyone here, one of the characteristics of good governance is to achieve clear, objective goals with available resources. You have to do with what you have. Humanism is the great value that is not negotiable and transcends everything. What we have is coexistence between the classical approach of international law to human rights, where states have an obligation to respect, protect, and guarantee rights, and where the state, be it through the police, the army, or civil servants, needs to uphold these rights. And that is linked to the fact that the state has been recognized as the only upholder of the legitimate use of force and enforcing the law. That means you need a rational budget allocated to that end. They use the budget in the territory, but they don't control it or do not try to, because it's sporadic. And often the basic principles of the state are not respected. When there's criminal governance, that's another issue. Assets are seized, but resources could come from the crime itself through that. And then on the other hand, there's another way of understanding this, amongst many ways of seeing. All the inhabitants of a state are guarantors of the respect of human rights, and the state needs to not interfere. It's its duty to create an environment which is propitious without without ignoring the issues of national security. So it's the state's duty to not allow occupation of national territory by crime, and it should be seeing this as a threat to the very survival of the state. When the state is indebted, then it should continue to be responsible for public security policy and citizen safety while respecting rights. It's up to the state to do with what they can with drug trafficking, which is present, and its unavoidable obligation to respect human rights. It must balance this. Ecuador has been working considering the various actors, and that's why the diagnosis of the situation is important, especially those defend human rights, and the impact of crime on state agencies and the need, amongst other needs, to provide a space for civil society to actively contribute to public policy and to tend to the victims. This cannot happen, rationally speaking, if states give direct responsibility for the results and if deny itself the organization of security. And that's why we understand and appreciate the recommendations of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. And we will take those recommendations as guidelines to shape what's possible and what's desirable in our policies to optimize governance. In the novel by Adolfo Casales, the cities operate in an immortal space. There, no one dies or is killed in an irreversible way. Everything is organized by the civilians. Neither the criminals nor the Nimrods are there to maintain the police without the addition of the military in those areas where there's a fight to not give that territory over to crime. The state needs public policy with a democratic focus on security, security, and security for democracy. That is why Ecuador reaffirms its commitment to the rights and full enjoyment of those rights vis-a-vis organized crimes, universality of human rights, citizen participation, pluralism, and non-discrimination are all principles which sustain our effort. The speaker has been cut off. Please finish, says the chair. Double click. Thank you. These are compatible in a democratic state. That's our commitment. We must fight for responsibility to be assumed vis-a-vis the peoples of the America. Thank you, Ambassador, says the chair. I give the floor to the Dominican Republic. Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Secretary General, Madam Assistant Secretary General, distinguished representatives, and permanent observers. The delegation of the Dominican Republic appreciates the convening of this meeting to address Resolution 1/26 of the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights on Organized Crime and Human Rights in the Americas. We would like to convey our recognition to the chair of the commission, Commissioner Orellano, for his presentation. We'd also like to thank Mr. Marcos Villeda, Minister of the Interior of Guatemala, and Mr. Bruno Paez Maestro for his very helpful contributions and thoughts. Madam Chair, the Dominican Republic fully shares the concerns that were expressed in this resolution with regard to the impact of organized crime on human rights, on governance, democratic governance, and sustainable development in our countries. Criminal organizations create violence and issues for security, but they also weaken public institutions. They impact citizen confidence, and they increase inequality and consume resources that should be used for vital services such as health, housing, education, and social protection. That's why we understand that the state's response should be comprehensive, coordinated, and sustainable. It should be based on institutional strengthening, regional cooperation, financial prosecution of criminal structures, and strict attachment and respect of human rights and the rule of law. In the case of the Dominican Republic, the Constitution enshrines all fundamental rights, basic rights, and recognizes international instruments in the area of human rights. In this legal framework, our actions are guided to fight organized crime, and this is done with full respect of due process, legality, and fundamental freedoms. Moreover, we have strengthened our mechanisms for institutional coordination with joint tasks that include the public ministry, security agencies, intelligence agencies, customs and border control, and financial ministries in order to strengthen our response capacity vis-a-vis complex phenomena such as money laundering, drug trafficking, trafficking of persons, illicit trafficking of migrants, and other forms of transnational organized crime. We have also made progress in institutional specialization with specialized agencies to combat crimes using high technology, money laundering, trafficking of persons, illicit trafficking of arms, environmental crimes, and drug trafficking. And we have thereby strengthened prosecution and investigation capacity. We believe that protecting victims and witnesses, journalists, and defenders of human rights, as well as those communities that are most affected, should be central to any strategy to combat organized crime. In that regard, we'd highlight the efforts undertaken to expand services for legal free representation through the National Service of Legal Representation for the Rights of Victims. Also, we have the adoption of specialized protocols for attention to persons who are particularly vulnerable. This is geared to preventing re-victimization and to guaranteeing effective access to justice. We also recognize the importance of protecting freedom of expression and journalism. Intelligence and security measures should always unfold within the limits established by the state, the rule of law, and with strict respect of fundamental rights. The regional experience shows that organized crime mainly feeds on economic and financial structures that are illicit, and that's why it's key to strengthen financial investigation, combat money laundering, recover assets of illicit origin, and stop institutional seizure and corruption. The Dominican Republic has promoted significant normative reforms through coordination with authorities of criminal prosecution, other specialized agents with regard to financial crime. We're convinced that money is one of the most effective ways to dismantle criminal organizations. The Dominican Republic values the adoption of this resolution as an important contribution to the strengthening of hemispheric cooperation, and because it reaffirms our commitment to continue working together with member states and other relevant actors to rebuild societies. And the speaker was cut off, notes the interpreter. Thank you, Ambassador. I think you were just finishing, yes? Thank you, Ambassador. I now give the floor.
Ambassador Risuto from the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States recognizes the grave impact of organized crime on communities across the hemisphere, including the ways in which criminal organizations exploit vulnerable individuals, weaken institutions, and fuel violence, corruption, and drug trafficking. The United States is committed to working with OAS member states to dismantle these networks through the shared responsibility and regional cooperation. However, the United States opposes references throughout the IACHR resolution related to concepts such as intersectionability, gender perspective, and other terms that lack clear definition. The United States believes that efforts to combat organized crime should employ precise language that recognizes the biological reality of two sexes, male and female, We also do not advocate for drug policy differentiation by segments of the population. Our policy is ensuring that this organization remains focused on concrete and measurable actions and dismantle transnational criminal organizations, disrupt illicit financial networks and trafficking routes, protect victims, strengthen law enforcement and judicial institutions, and deliver real security outcomes for the people of the hemisphere rather than advancing ideological frameworks unrelated to the objectives. U.S. initiatives like the Joint Task Force Alpha are disrupting human trafficking and illegal migrant smuggling networks, protecting people in our region from dangerous criminal and ensuring justice for victims. The United States stands ready to partner with OAS member states to advance these shared goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And now we give the floor to France. Francia tiene la palabra.
France has the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair. France would like to thank Guatemala and the co-sponsoring delegations for this initiative and the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights for adoption of Resolution 126 on organized crime and human rights in the Americas. This resolution makes a significant contribution to our collective thoughts about a phenomenon which is one of the major challenges to the rule of law, citizens' safety, and democratic vitality in the region, but throughout the world too. As recalled by the French Minister of Europe and Foreign Affairs, Jean-Marc Barrot, France is submerged in drug trafficking and organized crime that goes along with it. These challenges, therefore, are particularly important for France, confronted with the intensification of drug trafficking on its territory, which is fully anchored in the American and Caribbean space through the Antilles and Guyana, French territories. Transnational organized crime in all of its dimension, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, environmental crimes, trafficking of persons, illicit trafficking of migrants, all of this fuels corruption, weakens public institutions, and disproportionately impacts the most vulnerable people. In that context, France applauds the approach of the Commission that forcefully reminds us that effectively combating organized crime cannot be based on just a security or repressive view. We are firmly convinced that public policy needs to be comprehensive, lasting, based on human rights, coordinating prevention, access to justice, protection of victims, fighting impunity, and bolstering democratic institutions. France is proud to have supported the work of the Commission in this area, especially through a financial contribution aimed at supporting this initiative. This shows our ongoing commitment to strengthen the inter-American human rights system and to develop public policy which is respectful of fundamental rights and the rule of law. This approach goes hand in hand with France's priorities in international arena, especially within the G7, where fighting transnational organized crime and illicit trafficking and their destabilizing effects on democracies and the rule of law remains a major priority. In the continuation of this commitment, France will organize in July in Martinique a regional conference on security, which will focus on fighting illicit trafficking, especially drug trafficking and trafficking of firearms in the Caribbean Basin and Guyana. This initiative, which will involve regional partners, the OAS is invited and we hope will be represented at the meeting, as well as partners from the G7. This is one of the deliverables of the French presidency of the G7 in the area of security. Our mobilization takes place in a context of an overall approach based on justice, prevention, and international cooperation, especially through buttressing international cooperation efforts to combat money laundering and to secure ports. An indication of this overall approach within the OAS, France supported the Commission's initiative before state, but also financed in 2025 a seminar on drug trafficking and securing logistical port platforms put in place by CICAT. This involved police, customs, port authorities, and representatives of the private sector to work on common tools for cooperation. Given the criminal networks that operate beyond our borders, our response needs to be coordinated. We're convinced that bolstering regional cooperation and exchanging information is an essential condition to effectively respond to the transnational nature of organized crime. From that point of view, France will continue to support the efforts of the Commission and the Inter-American human rights system, to which we are deeply attached. This resolution usefully reminds us that lasting security cannot happen without respect of human rights, and human rights cannot be respected without sound institutions and combating criminal organization. France thus reaffirms its commitment to a balanced approach respectful of human rights and based on regional cooperation to protect our peoples, to strengthen our democracy vis-a-vis the threat of organized crime. Thank you, Ambassador. I now give the floor to Ambassador Montón of Spain.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I very much welcome the presentation that Commissioner Ralón has made for the IACHR, and that speaks to the issue of organized crime and human rights in the Americas. Yet again, I want to applaud the effort of every one of the commissioners on the IACHR team and every one of the technicians that work so hard to buttress their work. There appears to be a dichotomy between security and human rights. It shouldn't be the case, and we would offer security and security policies from the standpoint of human rights. Indeed, that itself is a new take that the Commission is offering, that we add on to the various policies that we have been thinking about, particularly where women are involved. This is something that the Commission has been doing for a while in Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Bolivia, for instance. And in those efforts, I'm pleased to say Spain has been quite active and happy to be financing much of that work. Organized crime and how this affects democracies is a hugely important issue. And we must look carefully at how we can do better in the countries of the Americas in this regard without sacrificing human rights and our public policy frameworks. It is essential that we work on prevention and the fight against inequality, as has been pointed out several times, while recognizing gender issues that have a bearing on vulnerability and therefore all the more need for the international community to work hard. So bravo to the IACHR. We are thanks for the work that has been done and the opportunity to think again as to how human rights and instruments of security and safety must work hand in hand, and what that does to our own democratic institutionality. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. And as we come to the end of our list of speakers, I want to offer very warm thanks, first of all, to the Chair of the Commission, Ambassador Ralón. Thank you for your presentation. And through you, please be so kind as to confer to all of the commissioners our deep great and the Secretariat of the ICHR in the hand of Daniel Rendon, who is here in the room, Luis Acevedo, and the entire staff. We know you and we appreciate you, and thank you for your work. Thanks indeed also to the distinguished panelists who have joined us from afar. Ambassador Escobar, who from Guatemala, who pointed out the importance of this issue with the sponsors that I mentioned to you when we got to that point. Not to mention every one of you individually who have made a difference to our understanding of these important issues as you contributed to them in your comments. We take good note of Resolution 01/26 of the IACHR. We take note of the presentations and the interventions. All of this is going to be in the minutes. You'll have it, and that is here agreed. Thank you very much to you all. We now move right along and go to item 5. We're going to have to stop halfway, but I wondered whether we might not tackle item 5 anyhow, and perhaps speak first to those who speak to the Permanent Council, and then after our pause, the break, which will go from 1 to 2:15, or 2:30, I should say, will take the rest. So yet again, we take item 5, strategic partnerships for the common good of the Americas. As mentioned, this is one of the initiatives that the chair of the Permanent Council of Costa Rica has very much pushed for. This is focused on increasing our hemispheric dialogue among the member states and associations that are affiliated with the OAS. These associations, these affiliated organizations, mobilize important technical and financial resources that complement, that add to the capacity of our organization, and mean that we can take the policy framework that we set before us and make sure that it is translated into actual fact, the work we do in the hemisphere. So all of this goes to our mandates and how we implement them, and how we can better identify public and private alliances, identifying also financing that is sustainable for social reasons. We make a distinction between the deliberation of this council and what we do in the field. We look to concrete fields that are evidence-based and where the impact of those measures can and should be measured. Let us then begin by welcoming the 3 organizations that are with us. First of all, we have up here at the head table the Trust for the Americas. We also have the Pan American Foundation for Development, the PADF, and also the John Business Trust, IBT, for using the acronym in English. I begin by giving the floor to Linda Edelman, the executive and CEO of the Trust for the Americas. You have 7 minutes and 30 seconds at your disposal. We're all ears. Go right ahead.
Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, and permanent representatives. Thank you so much for the opportunity to invite you to talk about the work of the Trust for the Americas. Before I get much farther, I also wanted to acknowledge the affiliates who are also going to be speaking today. YBT and PADF do really important work across the hemisphere, and I'm really glad to share this opportunity to talk about our work and listen to what you've been doing in the last months. It's really hard to believe that the Trust for the Americas is going to be celebrating its 30th anniversary next year. I'm really proud of what we've accomplished together and for the partnerships that has made our work possible. Today, rather than talk so much about our programs, I want to offer a strategic perspective about our work and tell you about how we think our work adds value to the inter-American system. People sometimes refer to the Trust for the Americas as a training organization, and in some ways that's accurate. Training is one of the most important tools we use to achieve our objectives. However, I think that what we do is more than just train. We really connect, and I think that's an important part of our value add. We connect institutions, resources, and communities in ways that would be difficult for the OAS to do alone. Rather than establishing local offices, we build the capacity of local organizations through a trust social franchise. This model allows us to directly implement and scale even after funding ends, and we think this is a pretty unique model. One of the things I want to particularly emphasize is that 60 cents of every dollar we spend on programs is spent in your countries. Working with our partners, we identify problems, we design solutions, we implement programs, and we rigorously track results. This feeds back into our programs, keeping our work innovative, keeping our work effective. Our beneficiaries learn skills, including how to use advanced technological tools, such as artificial intelligence tools, that allow them to find jobs, establish businesses, or strengthen those small businesses. I'd now like to share a very short video clip that shows how this works. So if you could show the video, please.
En el corazón de Maceo, Colombia, algo poderoso está ocurriendo. 65 mujeres decidieron creer en sus ideas, en su fuerza, en su futuro. Con el impulso de Trust for the Americas y Fundación Cemex Colombia, el proyecto Potenciando el Emprendimiento Innovador les brindó herramientas, formación y confianza.
Me llegó la oportunidad de estudiar con ustedes, muy agradecida, y he mejorado.
Y nos hemos sentido queridas, apoyadas, y que nos corrigen con mucho amor y con mucho respeto. Y pues de pronto si Cemex no llega, esto no estuviéramos todos acá en este momento.
Ya yo no soy una emprendedora, yo ya soy una empresaria. Gracias a este proyecto tan maravilloso que tuve con ustedes.
Este proyecto ha sido transformador para Viviorgánico y para muchas mujeres de Maceo.
Gracias a este apoyo que nos dieron, mi emprendimiento Ecogranja tuvo un crecimiento del 80% en ventas.
Quiero dar un agradecimiento gigante de parte de las mujeres de Maceo, de parte mía, a Trust for the Americas, Cemex, Alcaldía, la OEA,
por la oportunidad brindada a nosotros las mujeres de Maceo.
Maceo sueña, Maceo crea, Maceo inspira.
Thanks for your attention. This video really reminds us of what is our ultimate goals, and that is to give people the skills they need to generate income for themselves and their families. We believe that there is dignity in work. We have seen firsthand that our programs improve the self-esteem of our beneficiaries, and it provides beneficiaries the opportunity to find work and to build stable lives in their own communities. Ambassadors, you can point to these programs, the results of these programs in your own countries to demonstrate how the OAS is actually making a difference in the lives of people. In fact, all of our programs are co-branded as Trust OAS initiatives. Regarding our structure, the Trust is deeply embedded within the OAS and operates within its financial system. We follow procurement rules, we pay ICR. Our commitment to financial integrity has been recognized through Canada's Platinum Seal of Transparency. Our governance structure further shows that we're closely aligned with the OAS. The Secretary General serves as an ex officio voting member of our board, and the Director of Financial Services of the OAS serves as our treasurer. We also work closely on joint programs across the organization. Over the past couple of decades, we've worked with every single secretariat in the OAS, and currently we're working on joint proposals with SETI that we've presented totaling about $20 million, and we're also working very closely with colleagues at the LEOS Road Fund to facilitate the entrance of private sector money to support OAS scholarships. And those are just a couple of examples. In terms of finance, for every in-kind dollar the OAS provides the Trust, we leverage $30 in programmatic funding. That's a return on investment of 30 to 1. 75 to 85% of our resources come from the private sector. We are not a cost to the system. We bring in additional resources to the system, and we use those resources to deliver tangible results to the organization. The private sector is a hot topic these days, and the private sector is really critical to our work and always has been. We're very lucky to count on a very diverse group of high-level private sector leaders from across the hemisphere to serve as board members, council of advisors members, and strategic partners. But a private sector don't only serve as donors for our programs, they actually have a seat at the table with us. They help us identify problems often before others recognize those problems even exist, and they help us design cutting-edge solutions. I'd like to give you a quick example of how that has happened recently. We've spent a lot of time over the last few years offering AI skilling programs to people across the hemisphere. But when consulting with our beneficiaries, we learned that beneficiaries found that training wasn't enough. They felt they needed more tailored tools in order to become competitive in the 21st century economy. So, working with our board, we designed an AI advisory service that will deliver customized tools. And this Monday, we announced a pilot project in the Dominican Republic, and thanks to our colleagues at the Mission of the Dominican Republic for helping us put it together. We're working in partnership with the Ministry of Commerce, Microsoft, and Banco BHD. Our goal is to replicate the model across the region, making AI a practical growth tool. Finally, and in summary, over the past 30 years, the Trust has impacted the lives of more than 6.5 million people in 30 countries. Last year alone, we impacted the lives of 700,000 people. Our model costs less, scales faster, and adapts more quickly than more traditional approaches. I have limited time, so I'm not going to tell you stories about our beneficiaries, but you do have handouts in front of you which include some highlights of our work. And I'd also ask you to take a quick look at the bookmarks we left for you. The bookmarks tell real stories of real people whose lives have been changed because of the work of the Trust. What I'm asking of the Council today is simple. Use us. Use us. That's the most important message that I'd like to leave. Introduce us to private sector leaders.
Si puede cerrar en...
Could you please close within a minute, please?
Introduce us to private sector leaders in your country so they can help us in this journey. Our model works, and it's worked for 30 years. We're really proud of what we've accomplished, and we think the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, señora.
Thank you very much, Ms. Edelman, for that presentation and for the rich documentation that has been distributed to us all in each one of your seats. We are now going to move right along with the next speaker, Katie Taylor, please. Ms. Katie Taylor, or Katia Taylor, is Executive Director of the Pan American Development Foundation. We know this as the PADF, the Pan American Development Foundation. We are very grateful to Ms. Taylor for her joining here, and she also left us a folder in each seat with information you will find very rich. Ms. Taylor, you have 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
It is an honor and a privilege, Your Excellencies and distinguished members, to be here with the Permanent Council. Et tout d'abord, un commentaire de bienvenue aux élèves.
Let me begin by offering some comments to the students of the Lycée Français Rochambeau who are with us and learning about multilateralism. You are all very welcome.
There will be a presentation. My comments will be in English. They will be brief. We at the Pan American Development Foundation, we were created by you, the member states of the Western Hemisphere, to support you, to engage with the private sector, and to support your populations. We are an integral part of the inter-American system, and we pride ourselves on our commitment to the countries of the Americas and to engaging in vital efforts to save lives, to strengthen security and rule of law, as we were just discussing earlier this morning, and to expand and promote economic opportunity. So what makes us different? We absolutely have a hemispheric reach. We have channeled over $1 billion in the last 10, 12 years to your countries and your people. In the last 4 or 5 years, that has translated to roughly $130 million per year. And it's not money from the OAS, it is funding that we are able to raise independently. We have several models to implement, direct, indirect, and embedded, and we have been here for over 60 years, again, created by you in 1962. Let me give you an illustration. These are just some case studies on how we deliver results at scale. For instance, in crime and violence prevention, again, illustrative data from the Caribbean. In some target communities, we were able to reduce crime by 10% as compared to control sites, where at the same time, crime was increasing by 21%. We have innovative approaches, such as citizen labs, on how to engage local civil society and innovate with them in cost-effective, sustainable solutions. We also have a model of embedded advisors, particularly in the security and justice sectors, where we will embed advisors in your government agencies to produce lasting change and innovation. Additional models includes STEM, that's science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM education across the Americas, to train teachers and engage students across a number of countries. This is particularly important to help students develop 21st century skills for the jobs that are becoming available. So these are some brief illustration of results that we deliver at scale across the countries of the Americas. We'd also like to outline the focus on technology. We are embedding artificial intelligence and other types of technology to deliver 15 times the increases of traditional analog projects and 93% faster. So if you can analyze 15 times more cases in minutes rather than weeks, leveraging the same world-class human intelligence that is needed to provide insights to help, as we are doing in Ecuador, the justice system improve their fight against crime and transnational illicit organizations, then we see that as value added. So too, in Paraguay, for instance, we are supporting national rollout of 5G connectivity, which is vital to the country's development, and embedding technology in programs to support formalization and labor rights in Mexico. So some examples of how we're taking technology to add to projects and make them faster, better, cheaper, and more scalable. So some of, as with the previous speaker, Linda Edelman of the Trust, we work across the OAS and all the OAS secretariats and organizations. We are very proud to do that. We also, next slide please, have been able to bring funding to parts of the OAS, like SEDI, through our nonprofit status in the Americas Competitiveness Exchange. And we've created an innovation hub, a not-for-profit innovation hub, Innovante, which we put at your service to avoid the double ICR. And we have shared that with the previous head of SEDI, Kim Osborne, member states, and the current head of finance, Michael Bogacek. So I would urge you to take advantage of our innovation hub as well. So in sum, we are here for you. In front of you, you have folders that should be customized by country. If you would like us to work more closely with you, with your private sector, with your agencies, please reach out to us. We're here for you. We are ready, willing, and able to work with you in any language. Em português, se quiserem, em espanhol.
I can say this in Portuguese, in Spanish, in French, and in English.
Muchísimas gracias, Katie, por
Thank you, Katie, for that very, very interesting presentation. And we're now going to move on to our next panelist, who is Luis Viguria, Mr. Luis Viguria, CEO of Young America's Business Trust. And we are going to do our best to be as focused as we were at 9:30 when we kicked off this meeting. So Luis Viguria is the CEO of the Young America's Business Trust. You have the floor for 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Ambassador Solano, thank you very much for the opportunity to address you, distinguished ambassadors. On behalf of the Young America's Business Trust, we are particularly pleased to be able to share with you the work that our organization is carrying out. And as our colleague Linda Edelman already said, together with the many groups that work with us in the hemisphere. Just this past June, our group turned 27. This is key It's a real milestone. We are a 501c3 group, as it is known, and have had an association with the General Secretariat of the OAS for a very key reason. We are focused on the social development and economic progress of young people, particularly those who live in poverty or vulnerability, and therefore, together with the OAS, we have focused on implementing the mandates of the General Assemblies, the summits of the Americas, and the various goals for development, for sustainable development. Let me begin then by simply sharing the lessons that have been learned and how we feel impacted by them. The YABT has been focused initially on the difficulty that young people have in entering the market. And we realized very quickly that we needed to do more than to urge these young people to find a job. There had to be another string to that bow, and we realized that in many of the countries there were training programs, but many of them were very theoretical. And the young people that we were dealing with had hoped to have, for the most part, build a business, but they didn't have any idea how to use those concepts. And that's where we built the labs on entrepreneurship. And that is how we found two solutions to a concrete problem. First of all, when the young people said, well, I don't know how to do this, we already had some answer. Because through those labs that we set up, they didn't only learn the theory, the interpreter excuses herself, but put in practice what those theories were. This was launched initially by the World Bank, and then FemCD picked it up and went. And 17,000 young people throughout the hemisphere in 250 different workshops were helped this way, and had tremendous support from Israel, allowing the experts to go there and train so that young people then could move on and put in practice what they had learned. The impact that all of this had on entrepreneurship among these young people allowed the private sector to see what these young people were doing. And thanks to IIT, the UN also took note and said that this kind of activity would count and was important for development. But we learned along the way that while it is true that these young people indeed had the tools that were necessary to get going, and even if they had the intention to launch into building a job, it was going to be necessary that they have a much closer association with the OAS. And that is precisely how the now Secretary General, Albert Ramdin, intervened in a very important way. It was in 2007 that these young people had an opportunity to express their views to the General Assembly. And from then on, every General Assembly has seen among the delegates the participation of young people. That has a twofold benefit. It helps the youngsters, but it helps the private sectors of those governments to see in the young people future entrepreneurs, which is what they wish to do. Very often, as you know, young people don't really feel that they are even visible, and it's all too easy to fall through the cracks. But from 2007 to the present day, 53,700 young people have carried out 38,000 different programs with different companies in every single member state of the OAS. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, has also meant that young people could build strategic alliances, and all of this covered by the WADT. Presently, we're working with the Secretary General to work with the Afro-descendants, the young people of Afro-descendants. And this is where I believe you can see a practical example of how this works outside the context of theory. But we needed more. And it was consolidating this with governments that we hoped to make a difference. And that is yet again where YABT and the OAS worked together and started having an impact on the Summit of the Americas. It started with 3 minutes in Mar del Plata, where the young people worked with civil society and presented their ideas. That, ladies and gentlemen, is 20 years ago. Those young people are now absolutely formally a part of the summit session. And much of this, of course, is due to the youngsters' own work, but also very much to the OAS, and thanks to the coordination and the support of every one of the countries that have been headquarters and have received the OAS to hold the sessions there, opening their doors to ensure that the young people were welcome as well. We always are in dialogue with these young people, and the question of finding a job, of what the marketplace looks like, is always, of course, top of the list. But what we are trying to mitigate now, I give you less than a minute, Sir Luis. You need to wrap up, says the chair. So sorry. 131,000 have been benefited throughout the member states. 61,000 are active in the summit process. 50,000 are entrepreneurs putting all this in practice. 17,000 have been trained. 50 centers have been certified. 150,000 jobs have been certified, and more than $10 million have been mobilized for international cooperation. What would we like, and what would we like to propose to the member states? Please understand that YABT is not in the budget of the OAS. Everything we do, along with other institutions, have to build, which we have to build our own financing. But we do call upon you, ladies and gentlemen, to please connect us with your respective private sectors and to contribute, if you possibly could, through annual contributions, so that we can multiply the effects for our young people as we move forward. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Liguria, says the chair. Let us end by listening to what the three speakers have said. This is 30 years ago that this started. We had TDF more than 60 years working in our region, and YBT, as we just heard, as Luis said, 27 years, helping young people in the Americas. With this very welcome message, we are now going to call it the first part of the day, have a pause, and come back after lunch at 2:30.